I'll actually grab music until he gets in, just in case. Hi! How was everyone's day? How's everyone doing? Thank you. Thank you. I have to go somewhere after this, so I was like, I'm just gonna get ready now. That way, like, this second I'm done, I can just head out. I know. It'll be good. Anyway, how's everyone doing? How's everyone's day? Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know if Kami's gonna be here, so I'm just gonna grab music and then we'll start. Because I want to be able to get through all the chapters that I have to get through. So that's the one thing with it. Yeah. Thank you. Perfect. I'll take looking good every day. Let me get this set up. If he joins to do music, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. There you go. Also, I never wear yellow, but I had this dress in the back of my closet, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna wear it tonight, and I forgot how much I loved the color yellow. So, honestly, you'll probably see me wearing a lot more yellow going forward. I feel like it's not a bad color. I don't think I can do like mustard yellow, but I feel like a brighter yellow like this. This is also such a cute dress. I'll show you my dress. This is also such a cute dress. Like, look how cute this dress is. Ancient sun gods actually in the house. Here I am. I know I'm very pale. I'm very, very pale. So, we'll be good. I get a little bit more tan in the summer though, so maybe it'll work. Maybe we'll be able to make something happen here. Okay, chapter 1309. We're doing 1309 to 1320. Oh, I forgot to change this. 1320, and it's like 11 chapters. I really hope I don't cry during this section again. Because I don't have time to redo my makeup after. But we'll see. Okay, after circling the primitive island, I have to get them done in the next 2.5 hours. Like I don't have another option. So we gotta read quick. After circling the primitive island 3 times, the dawn finally made its way off to the distance, which was prematurely covered in storms. Bernadette slowly retracted her gaze and fixed it on the sage frontlet that remained suspended in the air. As a clairvoyant, she clearly saw the opportunity to advance. She knew that she had completely corresponded ritual. Preventing a disaster that involved higher order of power. However, the price she paid was personally seal her father that was missing and sought out for more than 100 years. How ironic. Bernadette looked at the vertical eye embedded in the diamonds and sighed softly. After leaving Intis, she had two big wishes. First, she wanted to investigate the truth behind the matter and see if the misunderstood her father. Second, she wanted to follow her father's footsteps and see if there was a possibility of reviving him. Bernadette had already fulfilled her first wish. The truth was that she indeed misunderstood her father. This certainly, I don't know what that word says, her pain and conflicted feelings. Her hatred for her father had completely dissipated, but it also added to her guilt. With the kind of guilt and yearning all the time, she tried her best to fulfill her second wish, but the outcome wasn't pleasant. If there hadn't been any hope from the beginning, she might not have had such a huge reaction. However, she had clearly seen the light and seen her father, but she had no choice but to personally place him into a state of slumber. After a moment of silence, Bernadette slightly uncursed her eyes and unfocused eyes became clear again. She no longer hesitated, no longer blamed herself. She no longer had all kinds of negative emotions. She firmly raised her right hand and drew out an ancient words of shimmered and sheltered radiance in the void. She summoned the spirit world creature who was half man, half wind, and retrieved the sage supplementary ingredient from it. As for the rest, as there was no need for them to be separately reversed, there was a collection room of the dawn. Not long after, Bernadette used pale death to shatter the sage frontlet. She concocted the potion and allowed her to have a sequence at sequence 2. Looking at the bubbling sage, with each bubble containing a transparent eye, Bernadette firmly raised her right hand and brought... Thank you, error. It's actually a dress. It's actually a dress, and it's a really cute dress. Corruption and completely revived. She needed a higher sequence and greater strength. Someone said I'm giving sun, like, it's the sun pathway. And I was like, maybe. We'll go with that. With the sage potion entering the mouth, Bernadette's body turned illusory and discernible place. She broke down into a thick, complicated knowledge, changing into an existence that was flux information. The entire dawn, as well as the surrounding wind, storm, lightning, seawater, and waves, all lost their sense of reality. It was as though they had been resorted to the most fundamental blocks in information. For most of Sequence 3 Beyonders of the Mystery Prior Pathway, such a state was extremely dangerous. If one's willpower wasn't strong enough, their luck wasn't good enough, and there wasn't any prepared enough, the knowledge that had transformed would be infiltrated with all kinds of information. Within seconds, they would be washed away, assimilated, and thus quickly losing consciousness. They wouldn't be able to resemble their bodies, turning into very strange and difficult monsters to deal with in mysticism, a knowledge demon. This was also known as an information creature. Bernadette had relied on Sage Frontlet and had previously transformed to a flux of information on several occasions. Although it was limited to 2 to 3 seconds, it didn't last long. It was still considered experience. At that moment, she tried her best to maintain the consciousness and establish a connection with the information produced by the spirit world, preventing higher-level disaster. The information had a clear imprint belonging to her, and it involved a very high level of power. It was exceptionally solid and could be dispersed by other information, or for short periods of time. It helped her to stabilize the consciousness and slowly gather a dissipating flux of information around her body. During this process, Klein, who was above the gray fog, tapped the edge of the long molten table and helped of light prayer of light. He used a miracle invoker ability to change the probability of certain developments and actions to a certain extent. He had bestowed Bernadette with a certain amount of good luck. The time ticks by, and there were several items that Bernadette wavered to the border of losing consciousness. By the end, she managed to tide through it. She gathered all the information that belonged to her and began to reconstruct her body. At that moment, she gradually felt a concerned Admiral Stars Catlia had for her. She felt that the members of the Elemental Dawn and her crew making her daily repairs. This stabilized her condition better, allowing her to resist the ancient will that was slowly developing in her body. At this moment, a series of secret information came from nowhere, taking the opportunity while Bernadette was reforming her body to attempt to fuse with her. This was the interference from the hidden sage. As embodiment of the world's knowledge and information, as a quasi-sequence zero existence of mystery prior pathway, the hidden sage has a certain influence of Beyonders in a low-level sequence than him. Without giving Bernadette the chance to use the pale white mask, the curtain draped over Klein gently rose. Space-time distorted around Bernadette, completely isolating her from the outside world. Even information couldn't be interchanged. Grabbing the sudden moment of peace, Bernadette completely resembled her body and used her own anchors to balance out the terrifying will that surfaced her body. At that moment, she had become truly a she, a Sequence 2 angel of the mystery prior pathway, an important figure in a mysterious world that could be addressed as a secret existence. Right on the heels of that, she saw the distorted space around her return to normal. She saw the series of hidden information surging towards her. She stretched her right hand and grabbed the information with ease, extracting the useful information contained within. Just as Bernadette was about to return to reality from the spirit world, an orange light suddenly bloomed in front of her eyes. This light instantly condensed into a fat elder with a short white beard. The elder smiled and said, "Ma'am, I'm Orange Light Hilarion." Orange Light. Bernadette was puzzled. She didn't understand why Orange Light Hilarion would suddenly appear in front of her. They had interacted much before. As the leader of the Elemental Dawn and the former mysticologist, she wasn't unfamiliar with the seven lights of the spirit world. She even knew how to pray to the seven lights, as well as the ritual need to receive the corresponding advice. She knew that the seven lustrous lights were symbols of the spirit world, and they contained endless knowledge in different domains. They were definitely at the angel level. Orange Light Hilarion added with a smile, "A great existence wants me to inform you of the knowledge regarding the great old ones, the outer deities, and the cosmos, so that you have a relatively accurate grasp on the state of the world and the corresponding corruption." "Which existence is it?" Bernadette asked, puzzled and cautious. She had vaguely guessed the answer, but she still found it quite unbelievable. After all, the seven lights in the spirit world were also important figures in the mysterious world. Even if a sequence zero true God wouldn't find it easy to get to them to do their bidding. Orange Light Hilarion chuckled in reply, "The greater ruler above the spirit world." The great ruler above the spirit world. Bernadette repeated the honorific name, and her thoughts raced. Hilarion glanced at her and smiled. "He also has another title, Mr. Fool." Somewhere in the future, which was cruising in a safe sea route, Catlia suddenly awakened from her dream. As her forehead was covered in a cold sweat, in the dream just now, she saw the queen lying in the ground drenched in blood. Her chest was torn open, and a baby-like monster crawled out of it. Sorry, pause. No. I'm good. As a mysticologist who was advanced in the drop of snake of fate blood, Catlia believed that her dream wasn't without any reason. It was definitely a premonition. Why, Cuttlefish has to have something to do with pregnancy. He's gotta have a little thing there. Something, you know? It was obvious that the dream she had wasn't pleasant. While feeling uneasy, Catlia sat up on her cloak. She attempted to pray to Mr. Fool, hoping that this mighty existence would give her some hints or protect the queen. Soon, a scene appeared before her eyes. Queen Mystic Bernadette walked out of the spirit world and returned to dawn, allowing the ship to gradually distance itself from the nameless islands. Catlia immediately heaved a sigh of relief and certainly thanked Mr. Fool. After finishing her prayer, she opened the window of the captain's cabin in joy, causing starlight to condense with a long bridge that reached the deck. She put on her heavy glasses and walked along the resplendent bridge of starlight and deck, where she proceeded to stroll leisurely in a quiet night. When she arrived at the bow of the ship, Catlia saw Frank Lee tinkering with bottles. "What are you doing?" Catlia subconsciously frowned. Frank looked up and said with a bright smile, "My idea's encountered a setback, so I can't proceed any further from now. I asked Nina to get me some soil from the bottom of the sea to study the microbes in it." With that said, Frank said with a look of anticipation, "When I have my next vacation, I'd like to go to the depths of the North Sea and the poles, where the worlds of ice and snow. There might be many ancient microorganisms buried beneath the thick layer of ice there, from the fourth epoch and the third epoch, or even the second epoch and the first epoch. This will bring me plenty." "You won't have any vacations for the time being," Catlia said inwardly. Can't say I do remember that, Can't say I remember. Klein conjured a box and placed the 4 cards of blasphemy inside. After sealing them, he immediately returned to the real world and headed for the nearest Evernight Cathedral. He planned on informing the Evernight goddess in the form of prayer of hidden dangers in the card of blasphemy, reminding her to pay attention to such problems. He didn't want Earth Mother Lilith to obtain the Mother card or the Moon card. You know who I want to see become an outer... It was envoy, not enjoy. You know who I want to see become, an old god and an outer deity? Frankly, I think he would do so well. We should give Frankly the Moon card and the Mother card. I think he would do really good with it, and I think we should make him an outer deity. And an outer god. And I just want to see what would happen, For science. The Braille Hall of the Evernight Cathedral was as dark as before. As the holes in the wall allowed some light to seep in, the lights in the night sky... Wait, what am I saying right now? Sunlight to seep in like stars in the night. Klein sat at the corner and was eye-catching, took off his top hat and began praying like a pious member of the Congregation. He simply mentioned how Roselle had revived his last mausoleum and focused on the corruption of the primordial moon. He deliberately emphasized that in order to prevent the crimson moon within him from being born in the real world, Roselle had chosen to terminate the process of having his Black Emperor uniqueness. Thanks. I'm actually doing really good. Yeah, I just had a really busy night. Couldn't get any sleep. Is it showing on my face? He simply mentioned how Roselle had revived this last mausoleum and focused on the corruption of the primordial moon. He deliberately emphasized that in order to prevent the crimson moon within him from being born in the real world, Roselle had chosen to terminate the process of having the Black Emperor uniqueness and the 3 sequence 1 characteristics returned to him. In the end of the prayer, Klein pointed to the hidden dangers of the cards of blasphemy and expressed his concerns with the whereabouts of the Mother card and the Moon card. In fact, Roselle only mentioned that he needs to be careful of the Mother card and didn't mention the Moon card. However, Klein knew the 2 pathways of Earth and Moon belonged to the Mother Goddess of Depravity. Therefore, to be cautious, he specifically added the Moon card. This was also... They did. What can I say? It's actually my side gig. I live a double life, Jekyll and Hyde style. For the Mother card and didn't mention the Moon. However, Klein did 2 pathways. This was also the main reason he was worried about Earth Mother Lilith. Compared to most of the 22 pathways, the High Sequence Beyonder, the Planter, and the Moon pathway had a huge advantage. That was that they didn't need to worry about the primordial primordial one from waking their bodies. They didn't need to worry about dissociation from approaching the world underground. This was because the bionic characteristics they possessed didn't directly come from the primordial one, which led to no corresponding mental imprint. I'm so happy I chose the Planter pathway in our D&D campaign. The more I read, the better it gets. However, if they were to directly go underground and enter the Chaos Sea, no matter who it was, they would encounter corruption. It was just that the extent would be different. This advantage was very likely due to the fact that the sanguine ancestor Lilith was more special than the other ancient gods. After all, she didn't need to divert a large part of her energy and resist the will of the primordial one waking within her. And back then, the invisible barrier protecting this world was still sufficiently sturdy, separating the Mother Goddess of Depravity and the Old Great Ones from Earth, making it difficult for them to exert too much influence on the situation inside. But with the passage of time, the advantage gradually became a problem. As the underground corruption became weaker and weaker, the invisible barrier also became weaker, and cracks began appearing. Under such circumstances, Earth Mother Lilith's situation became worse. This was because she was facing the intrusion of the Mother Goddess of Depravity that was ever increasing in potency and terror. In this aspect, the original creator, the oldest one, and the dead was definitely inferior to the living Mother Goddess. Considering how other deities who had transcendent sequences had to influence the Beyonders from their own pathway, Klein felt that he couldn't afford negligence on such matters. After he finished his prayer, he waited for nearly 5 minutes. After confirming that there was no response, he stood up, put on his wandering magician's tall hat, and walked out of the cathedral that belonged to the Evernight. To him, this is mainly a disclosure obligation. As for what the Evernight goddess planned to do with it, or if she would remind him of certain matters, it was beyond his control. In short, Clyde could only temporarily believe that the Evernight goddess knew the relative importance of the matters. Backland in the Harvest Church, south of the bridge, the top-hatted Emlyn White got out of his carriage and looked at the sun covered by the clouds and mist. On the way to the entrance of the cathedral, he gently rotated his ring on his left hand, as to flaunt his identity. The ring was a semi-translucent in color, and as though it was made from a red amber light, there was blood-red gems embedded on it, the tip. A reward Emlyn had received a long time ago, Lilith's ring. After becoming a demigod, Emlyn could suppress the effects of the bloodthirstiness from the ring to a certain extent. Every day, he only needed to drink 3 bottles of human blood to be immune to the corresponding negative effects. Therefore, in order to showcase this special identity to the ancestors blessed, he began wearing this ring permanently. Hi! After entering the Harvest Church, Emlyn automatically removed his top hat. At this moment, Cosme, Ernst, and the other Sanguine and Backland who were waiting for the Bishop Petrovsky stood one after another. Looking down the aisle, they greeted softly, "Good morning, my lord." Emlyn looked ahead and nodded indiscernibly. "Is Maestro still not here yet?" "Count Maestro set up a chapel at home," Ernst simply explained. Emlyn didn't comment on this. He walked forward and casually said, "He will still have to come when Mass is held." He looked around before saying, "Where's Bishop Petrovsky?" This shit went straight to his head. no one's surprised by this development. Like, I'm not surprised by this development. Yeah, this went, the second Emlyn knew that he was about to have a one-up and he was about to be important, it went boop, and his head became huge and his ego inflated to the size of Canada. Like, he's eating this up. He loves every second of this. Yeah. Emlyn didn't comment on this. He walked forward and casually said, "He will have to come when mass is held." He looked up before saying, "Where's Bishop Utrovsky?" "The bishop is waiting for you behind the church's envoy has arrived." Ernst controlled his facial expression and he answered Emlyn question politely. With the church's envoy, Emlyn rotated the light red ring on his left hand and walked to the back of the cathedral. Soon he saw Bishop Utrovsky with a slight curl, black hair, envoy of the church, and tall nose and deep eyes. Bio known. "This is the Archbishop of Grace Loretto." Father Utrovsky introduced the envoy to Emlyn. He stood by the window, blocking most of the light. "Good morning, Your Grace," Emlyn replied with an etiquette of Church of Earth. Loretto smiled and spoke with a rather awkward low ease. "There's no need to address me as Your Grace. Although you aren't an archbishop, you have the status of an archbishop. From today onward, you will be a hierophant, a high-ranking deacon of the church. You will be in charge of the sanguine matters in Backland." Oh my god. We're giving him so much power and influence. Without giving Emlyn any time to adjust the information, Loretto continued, "I came to Backland under the Holy See's orders. I'll tell you everything you need to be taken note of within the church." "Please speak." Emlyn suppressed his glee and said politely. Loretto's expression immediately turned serious. "First of all, the most important point is that the clergymen of the Church are the believers of Earth Mother, as long as you claim that you have obtained the revelation, the individuals who have been enticed by demons with no exception. If anyone reports something like this to you, or if you have obtained the revelation personally, please inform the Bishop Utrovsky as soon as possible and report it to the church." Father Utrovsky didn't mention this before. The request sounds very strange. As though there's some suspicious, Emlyn frowned as he looked at Father Utrovsky, who was standing by the window. The bishop never said anything in taking notes of such matters. Before he finished his sentence, Emlyn suddenly realized that he came off criticizing Bishop Utrovsky, but he couldn't find any better explanation in his haste. Almost at the same time, he understood what the odds about the Archbishop Loretto had said. This was telling everyone that Mother Earth, you sensed the real Earth... Earth Mother, you sensed, isn't the real Earth Mother. This is saying that a large number of the revelations us sanguine received from ancestors are fake. It's from demons or evil gods. The look in Emlyn's eyes sank as he tried to maintain his composure. At this moment, Loretto didn't mind and smiled. It's okay. You're welcome to stay. I promise we don't bite. We're all super nice. Bishop Utrovsky didn't tell you because he didn't know either. Father didn't know. In an instant, Emlyn actually felt a little sympathetic towards Bishop Utrovsky. He felt that as a Phaesian, a hierophant who has cherished faith in his later years, he had been ostracized by the other members of the Church of Earth. Sensing the change in his gaze, Loretto added, "That's because he's blessed. He doesn't need to care about the temptation and the demons of the evil gods." Bishop Utrovsky... Velma wears orange. This dress is yellow. Get it right. If you're gonna insult me, at least insult me properly. Fact check. Temptation, the demons of the evil gods. I'm pretty sure I went as Daphne for like Halloween 3 years in a row. Bishop Utrovsky nodded and said calmly, "The revelations of Earth Mothers are in her holy Bible, and those lines of teaching, anything other than that is hearsay." Emlyn was somewhat puzzled. He couldn't think of any questions. He grunted and said to Loretto, "Then what's the second point that needs paying attention?" Loretto made his expressions turn seriously. "If you receive a revelation, don't blindly believe it. Please immediately seek confirmation from Bishop Utrovsky." Why? Emlyn was puzzled. This was basically telling him that the response he would receive from either the evil god or demons. Loretto deliberated over his words and explained in detail. "In this world, there are many evil existences. They'll pretend to be deities and bewitch the clergymen in the act of enticing believers. That's because the two main pathways of the Church of Earth Mother are related to life. Therefore, the effects they receive are more severe than the other churches. From time to time, there are people who will take the wrong path and tempt forbidden life experiments, thus slowly degenerating. In order to prevent such developments, we recognized the Church a long time ago under the guidance of the Mother's will to establish the system of favored and blessed. And then understanding the Church of Earth was limited to the Holy Bible and part of the Scripture. He was momentarily at a loss. He had never taken the initiative to ask Father Wachowski about the Church of Earth Mother. Loretto glanced at Emlyn and nodded slightly. The favored are clergymen who have won the Mother's favor and are from the two pathways of Earth and Moon. The blessed refer to people who have obtained the Mother's blessings and are from other pathways. The latter is less affected by demons and evil gods. It can help us verify the authenticity of the revelations. Under such circumstances, even if the decree issued by the Holy See, there has to be at least a second in command favored. Otherwise, it can be regarded as a null and void. As he spoke, Loretto took out the document and unfolded it in front of Emlyn. Apart from what the Archbishop had just said, it included the details of him accepting the mission and appointing him as an envoy. At the end of the document, there were a few names. The first was the name of the Holy See, the Church of Earth, and Matriarch Roland, and the rest were the names of Emlyn didn't know. He barely recognized the last one to be Father Wachowski. Father Wachowski's handwriting was really ugly. As Emlyn mumbled to himself, he began to have a strong sense of doubt regarding the blessed and the favored system. Why are the blessed less enticed by evil gods and demons? Why are they able to verify revelation, but the favored couldn't? As his thoughts raced, Emlyn suddenly noticed a detail. The blessed aren't from the two pathways of Earth and Moon. Therefore, the problem didn't lie in the favored, but the two pathways themselves. Emlyn vaguely felt that his guess was the truth. I love this development for Emlyn. Truly, no one deserves it more. Emlyn vaguely sensed that there might be abnormalities in the two beyonder pathways of Earth and Moon, but he didn't ask Archbishop Loretto about it directly. He doesn't seem like he would answer, and better to wait for the next terror gathering to ask the world, the hangman, and the others. Emlyn nodded indiscernibly, indicating that he already knew the difference between favored and blessed, as he muttered to himself. He didn't consider seeking Mr. Fool's answer because he felt that there was no need, since the corresponding problem wasn't too important. After all, the Sanguines, dukes, marquis, and countess were still alive and well, and there hadn't been any particular negative news regarding the Church of Earth Mother. At the same time, the previous guest also made Emlyn connect these to the influence of the primordial moon in existence, which was perhaps an evil god or a high-level devil in disguise. Had on the moon pathway, he had once again many sanguine who prayed to him to lose control, turning into monsters that only knew how to mate and reproduce. Emlyn suspected that this was one of the evil existences that set a fake version of Revelations. With no more questions from him, Loretto put away the document in his hand and thought for a moment before saying, "This is the problem that requires special attention. In addition, I hope that you can set up 3 to 5 Beyonder teams in Backland. They should be mainly members of the Sanguine." Emlyn was always law-abiding. The only crime he did was steal blood at the hospital. He subconsciously raised the question, "Does the Church of Evernight and the Church of Storms have any objections?" Loretto said with a benevolent smile. This was the request from them. As most of the forces of the Church of Steam have withdrawn, there's a lack of official Beyonders in Lowen. Although the Church of Evernight and the Church of Storms have also recruited a group of missionary hive members who don't wish to leave Lowen and the low-ranking clergymen, they are ultimately just a minority. Furthermore, they still need to handle the purge in Fasak and the independent colonies overseas. Therefore, they hope they can provide some help. This is quite beneficial for our proselytizing in Lowen. However, you have to remind that here we have to restrain ourselves. We can't freely proselytize, just be on the same level as the remnant Church of Steam. Of course, our believers won't be able to catch up with the Church of Steam for a long period of time. This requires a generation, 2 generations, or even 3 generations of effort. Yes, maintaining the present scale and having a certain degree of development is enough. Isn't it too troublesome to proselytize? Emlyn heaved a sigh of relief and calmly replied, "Okay." In the Sonia Sea, city of generosity, Bayam, Alger wore a bishop's robe embroidered with symbols and lightning and waves. He wore a metal storm-sacred emblem and stood at the peak of the coastal mountains range, looking out at the other side of the forest. There were a few trees there. The surrounding hills and short mountains had been flattened, revealing a hidden harbor. It was a private harbor that belonged to the Resistance. It was definitely not comparable to Bayam's port, but it was medium-sized, enough to sustain many people's lives. A city with an constrained and crude style that had been built nearly near the harbor. The city wasn't huge, probably 1/5 of the size of Bayham or smaller. In the central, there were 2 towers. One was a spire and the other a steeple. They were all very strangely silver, reflecting a building light under the sun. No, dude, thinking back to how I was reading in like volume 3, and I think that's probably why I like dicked around so much in volume 3, because I was like, I can't read this. It's not flowing out properly. To like just me reading now, it's night and day. And it's just because I kept going. That's, you know what? Inspiration for the day, you guys. Just keep going and you will get so much better at doing something. For me, it was speaking and reading in public. And just reading in general. As someone who struggles with, who very heavily struggles with dyslexia. Yeah. But no, like trying to listen to me read in volume 3, I was like, oh my god, shut up. I was like, please stop talking. Please. I was so slow. I couldn't read properly because I kept messing up words. I stuttered so much. Yeah. Now it's a lot better. My voice just goes deep every once in a while and I still stutter on certain words, but other than that, we're pretty good. In the center there were 2 towers. One was a spire and the other was a steeple. They were all strangely silver, reflecting buildings under the light under the sun. Surrounding the twin towers were many paved roads made of cement. They led to buildings that were mainly made of stone and were connected to open squares. That's a dude. Dara 1, dyslexia 0. Let's go. Which is crazy. Honestly, because here's the thing. Once you just, yeah. Also, I think the other thing is I've just, like, memorized, which I know, like, all reading is just, like, memorizing words and sounds, but, like, I think I've just read words over enough times and messed them up enough times and been corrected to where I just remember what they are now, and we're good. Yeah. I was also bullied this entire time because I couldn't read or spell. Alger knew that the city didn't only consist of residents from the City of Silver, but also people from Moon City. Many of the latter were extremely deformed. They were temporarily unwilling to interact with Bayham, as well as the residents of the other cities on the island. They only purchased their necessities through the people of the City of Silver. It was said that they planned on building a city that belonged to them deep in the forest and would only leave a path to the new City of Silver. These are the believers of Mr. Fool. All have to slowly integrate them into the entirety of the Roast Archipelago. For now, or temporarily not disturb the deformed and allow the residents of the City of Silver to bring normal-looking Moon City residents to Bayham. Yeah, pretty much. Bullying is not good. Constructive criticism is good. I don't condone bullying, unless I'm the one doing it. And it's specifically to Kami, Harsh, or Sal, or David. Then it's fine. Therefore, he did his best to deal with the problems left behind by the Great Migration. To be frank, Alger was most worried that Mr. Fool didn't give him anything to do. If it happened, he didn't know how long it would take for him to make enough contributions, accompanying the new City of Silver's establishments an immense vibrancy to exude. His acutely sensed danger. There was more than one sequence for Demigod in the City of Silver and Moon City, and they were Mr. Fool's loyal believers. Perhaps Mr. Fool would one day bestow the identity, status, and authority and the power of the Sea God to one of them. No, give it to Alger! Please give it to Alger. There are 2 grade 0 sealed artifacts in the City of Silver, a sequence 3 saint, 3 sequence 4 saints, and nearly 10 grade 1 sealed artifacts, as well as a few demigod beyonder characteristics that are temporarily be used as grade grade 1 sealed artifacts. There are 3 demigods in Moon City, 5 grade 1 sealed artifacts, and a large number of potion formulas. This, Alger only made a slight calculation before realizing that the 2 factions that came under Mr. Fool were a little terrifying. Honestly, yeah. No fair. But here's the thing. That's why I bully them. Because they're some of the OGs, you know? I bullied Nagito and Quantum as well. And who else? Actually, Kiru. I bullied them too. You know? Yeah, during Pride Month. Harsh. I don't know if I said harsh, but add harsh a second time. All of them combined was equivalent to a quarter of the Church of Storms. According to what Alger knew, the number of grade 0 sealed artifacts each church had numbered between 5 to 8. There were fewer than 4 grounded angels. Yes, you. Active at present. In this aspect, they were indeed much stronger than the combined Moon City and City of Silver. However, the Orthodox churches had no advantage in numbers when it came to grade 1 sealed artifacts and saints, especially the latter. Due to all-out war, the brass increased the number of saints by nurturing them. The Church of Storms had only around 20 saints. The Church of the Sea God doesn't have any demigods yet, but it won't be long before the new Sea God will appear. As for the angels under Mr. Fool, there's the World, the Death Console, and the Angel Fate Pathway. There are saints from the Tarot Club, and the more Alger thought about it, the more alarmed he became. He realized that he was a little slow in this aspect. Perhaps it was because he didn't extricate himself to take objective look at things, and although he had always been amazed by such matters, he finally came to the clear realization today. Unknowingly, Mr. Fool's faction has already developed to the level that was comparable with the Orthodox Church. Even if there was a certain gap, it was only due to the lack of accumulation that needed to span across years, and it hadn't even been 3 years since Alger joined the Tarot Club. If I hadn't experienced all of these changes myself, I definitely wouldn't have believed it. Alger sighed inwardly as he fervently wished to do something for Mr. Fool so that he could quickly accumulate the contributions needed to transform into Sea God. I love Alger so much. If I didn't experience all these changes myself, I definitely wouldn't have believed it. Alger sighed inwardly as I already just read this. When that happened, he could truly cast his gaze towards the Book of Calamity and attempt to complete the request of the Elven Queen Kohenheim. I want him to advance and get everything that he deserves. Retracting his gaze, Alger glanced at Bayham at the foot of the mountain. He saw the city, which had suffered any serious damages in the war. He once again lit up. It could also be called the most prosperous city in the Sonia Sea. At that moment, the priests, bishops, and believers of the Church of the Lord of Storms were cooperating with the new government, city servants, and Church of Sea God to build schools, hospitals, and children in the slums of the natives with no financial capacity to provide education, medical treatment, and assistance. As Alger watched the people walking along the streets like ants in the colorful buildings that were different from the vast majority of Loam, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly before he wiped away his smile. He narrowed his eyes, unsure of what he was expecting or enjoying. At that moment, the grayish-white fog suddenly appeared in front of him. Following that, he saw the ancient palace-bearer figure in the middle of the fog. He heard Mr. Fool's words. A mission. Monder, a man named Verdu Garcia. Among the revelation, plenty of miscellaneous information ran down from drilled into Alger's mind, allowing him to know the exact situation of Verdu Garcia. He was a member of the Abraham family that had concealed his identity. He had recently left Desi country and had come to the Rorschach archipelago. Alger was thrilled. He bowed his head respectfully in response. By your will. Okay, because here's the thing. I always, and this might be a hot take, I always thought that Alger would have been really, really good in the spectator pathway. Like, I understand why he was in the sailor pathway, but knowing that he had both and he chose the sailor pathway, I think Alger would have done numbers in the spectator pathway. Just with his character and how he's written. And yeah. He would have been, actually terrifying. He is so spectator pathway coded. And Audrey in the sailor pathway would have been so cool. Oh my god, that would have been so cool. I like her in the spectator pathway, and I think she is good. Um, but I think there was a missed opportunity where Alger's character, and I don't know, and that might have been on purpose. That might, and here's the thing, I wondered if that always might have been on purpose, and if like I have a headcanon. Here's the thing, I have a headcanon that Alger, because he had access to both the sailor and the spectator pathway, and he chose the sailor pathway because he was in the Lord of Storms, and it was just kind of like the obvious choice, that as he kept developing and as he saw what Miss like Justice could do, he started to feel a lot of regret and remorse that he didn't choose the spectator pathway, and it kind of ate away at him. And that also compiled with the fact that he always felt behind, because I also think that in his heart of hearts he knew he should have picked the spectator pathway, and that's why he wasn't fully invested and like into the sailor pathway, and it kind of like weighed down on him, and that's why he was always looking at other people and seeing how far they were and always feeling behind himself, because he regretted not doing it. And that's like my headcanon with it, because I was like, he should have been in the spectator pathway. You can agree, you can disagree, but like that's just what I think. And I also think it adds to his character. So he knew very well that the person named Verdu yearned. I know, and that's the thing, like he had to. Yeah. He would have done so well. You know who else, yeah. Audrey in the Sun pathway. They could all switch pathways, and then Little Sun in the Sailor pathway. I actually don't even mind that either. I really, really don't. Oh fuck, there was one other pathway that I think Leonard should have gone with a different one. Was it Leonard? No, because I had this whole thing and I was like thinking of all the pathways of the Tarot Club members, and I was like kind of thinking, I was like, none of them are in the pathways that they kind of should be in. Like yeah. Yeah, no, like I do. I just like, I think he would have done really well in it. The reason why Klein had gotten Miss Magician to inform the Abraham, or was I? Klein knew that the Verdu Garcia Abraham had left the northern continent, was heading to the Rorst Archipelago, as Dorian Gray had mentioned this when he prayed. He knew very well that the person named Verdu yearned to save Mr. Dor so that the King of Angels could return to the real world. The reason why Klein had gotten Miss Messenger to inform the Abraham family of one of the rituals that helped Mr. Dor escape was because the trust between the two parties was insufficient. If he were to hide or to lie by saying the angel needed to be hunted for the ritual, the Abraham family would definitely suspect Forz and make her continued. Bye. Contacting Mr. Dorn try to confirm that through other means, once they discovered anything, Klein would lose control of the Abraham family, preventing him from nipping the problem in the butt. If it had been a few years ago, Klein would have been too worried about such problems. However, as the apocalypse approached, the infiltration of the outer deities would only increase. It was possible that the member of the Abraham family would come into contact with the corresponding item or believer and obtain the correct ritual. Therefore, Klein believed that the ritual was extremely difficult and complete without using the effective gain the trust of the Abrahams, allowing them to deepen their faith in Mr. Fool and become more devout. Then they would monitor the extreme ones amongst the devout and grasp their trajectories, interfering with them in time. Okay, bye. Have a good sleep. Mid-Chisar, Limon City, Jasmine wrapped a scarf around her face and exited the apartment. She had heard that the annual Limon Carnival had begun, so she wanted to visit in Municipal Square. Because of the war last year, the carnival hadn't been held. This had great disappointed Jasmine. After she suffered the greatest trauma of her life, from then on, she hid at home and didn't dare go out. Perhaps it was because she could confirm at home for too long. One of them was very cramped. Jasmine had been eager to go on the street recently. She wanted to walk around just like she did in the past. As she turned her gaze, she saw the reflection in the large glass window by the side of the street. Her figure was pitch black without any other color. Her long dress reached to her ankles, and the veil of her hat covered her face. From the bottom of her eyes to her neck, there was a scarf wrapped several times around her neck. Both her hands were wearing a pair of knitted gloves. This was completely different from the cheerful and lively Jasmine in her memories. In the previous war, a cannibal had destroyed her original home and resulted in a fire. She suffered burns to the face, causing her body to be covered in wounds. If not for the fact that she was lucky enough, Jasmine would have died from serious injuries, but even so, she felt like her life had ended from a very moment. Her nose had been burnt away, leaving only 2 black holes. There were many traces left behind by the fire in her neck, her hands, and she walked into the dark. She would pass off for a devil perfectly. Jasmine clearly resembled one thing. On the first night of the moving of the apartment, she washed up into the public bathroom before sleeping. Just as she walked to the door, she saw a youth walk over. The youth had also seen her. Under the crimson moon light, the youth revealed an expression of extreme horror. She would jump up at any moment. He turned around and ran away. Finally, he controlled himself and took a few steps to the side, not daring to look at Jasmine's face again. The pierced through Jasmine's fragile heart. From this day onward, she left the house again. Even if she had to wash up, she would wait until it was late at night. In the aspect, she was very grateful to her parents because of that. They didn't say a word. They did their best to maintain their lives, relying on the original savings and work that they later found and barely supported the family. They didn't need Jasmine to work outside for a salary. After walking the distance, Jasmine saw the main venue of the carnival, Lemon City Municipal Square. There was a sea of heads and all kinds of revealing emotions. The enthusiastic atmosphere made Jasmine subconsciously stop in her tracks. She didn't dare approach, afraid if someone would notice that she was dressed strangely, afraid that she might accidentally drop her scarf. After hesitating for a few seconds, she finally stopped and found a clean spot by the street and sat down. She stared intently at the municipal square. After an unknown period of time, Jasmine sensed someone beside her. It was a young man in a long black robe and tall hat. He was a magician from a circus. The municipal square is over there, Jasmine wanted to remind him, but after she quivered her lips a few times, she didn't part them. She didn't dare speak to anyone. However, the young man looked at the initiative and walked over. He took off his hat and bowed slightly. Miss, do you know what this machine is for? Machine. Jasmine subconsciously looked up and eyes follow her young man's gaze. Under the street lamp, a wide wardrobe-like machine was sitting there at some point in time. Its surface was brass in color and a few transparent glass gears or bearing embedded on it. The components were exposed, looking very crude. Jasmine retracted her gaze and shook her head, indicating that she didn't know what the machine was. At the same time, this also expressed her intention to reject the conversing. It's called a fully automatic washing machine, the young man introduced with a smile. It's my invention. It can automatically fulfill the wish of someone who operates it. By the way, I said washing machine, it's wishing machine. Wow. Oh my god. Crazy. Well, holy, Klein's inventing washing machines. He's about to make a lot of money. Let me wash your skirt for you, madam. I think I need to be bullied more. Oh my god. Get your clothes clean. Fully automatic. It can automatically fulfill the wish of someone who operates it. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Merlin Hermes, the Wandering Magician. A fully automatic wishing machine. Jasmine realized that she could understand every single word, but failed to understand the combined name. You can give it a try as... Oh my god. You can give it a try as the first user to experience it. It's free. She got that grand opening discount at the local laundromat. Klein, who had taken on the identity of Merlin Hermes, said with a smile. Jasmine shook her head, refusing the conversation. Klein didn't give up. He looked at her and said, "For example, you can make a wish to restore with your original looks." We just gotta wash away all that. These words were like a sharp arrow that shot into Jasmine's heart. She stood up in shock and retreated hastily in an attempt to leave. Advancing to sequence to wash clothes. She suspected that he had already seen her current appearance. If you don't give it a try, how will you know that your wish won't come true? It's free. Klein said unhurriedly as he looked past her into the background. Jasmine gradually slowed down and finally stopped. If she could be restored with her original looks, even if she had to pay a huge sum of money, she would still be willing to do so. However, she knew that the wish in her heart could not be granted by money. I don't have to pay anything. It's free to try. What if it comes true? Jasmine's thoughts were in the upheaval, and she slowly turned around as if she was being enticed by a devil. Really? She asked in a hoarse voice. Klein pointed to the machine. I can retreat 10 meters, and all you need to do is turn the wrench on the machine. You don't even have to remove your hat and scarf. The last sentence moved Jasmine into action as she quickly nodded and said, okay. Hi! Not long after Merlin retreated a certain distance, Jasmine moved closer to the machine, gingerly grasping the wrench on the door. She was actually very worried. Thank you. It's actually a dress. It's a really cute dress, too. She was actually very worried that this part of the prank involved pulling the wrench, such as being splashed by water. This was something that would happen every year during the carnival. She and her friends had often played such pranks on others, and compared to the wish that could be fulfilled, she felt that it was an acceptable risk. Even if it was proven to having her wish granted and impossible, it could still be treated as her experience at the carnival. Remember to make your wish before you turn it. Klein reminded her from not too far away. Jasmine collected her thoughts and silently voiced her wish. I want to return to my former self before the burns. No, I got you. I clocked what you were saying. I have somewhere to be after this, so I figured I'd get ready beforehand. With that, she turned to the wrench nervously and expectantly. In the next second, the door to the fully automatic washing machine... Fuck, I said washing machine again! Oh my god. Oh my god. The fully automatic wishing machine opened. A normal wooden cane reached out and tapped Jasmine's forehead. What Jasmine didn't notice was the golden ring embedded in the rubies that had appeared on her hand. The washing machine. Oh my god. When the wooden cane retracted back into the fully automatic wishing machine, the golden ring that was rubies disappeared as well. Bro, I mean, like, Roselle laid the foundation for Klein to open up laundromats. If he doesn't invent the washing machine, the dishwasher, and the dryer, I'm gonna be super disappointed in him. This is... Backlund Bicycle Company taught us anything. There's a market for making life easier for people. As the gears turned, Jasmine saw the machine's door, it said machines, door slowly close. Microwaves too! Oh my god. Washing machine, dryer, dishwasher, microwave, internet? What else? What else do we need to be invented? I'm thinking ovens, because I feel like they probably have just a convection oven and stovetop. That would make life a lot easier. Refrigerators would be cool. Refrigerator freezer combo, that'd be nice. Yeah. I feel like this would be good. The 100 was made to clean and polish the great existence of dyslexia, the queen of degenerative minds, and the forehead bigger than the observable universe's forehead. That's me. We gotta just create electricity. Can we just... Somebody hop on that. Hurry up. I'm waiting. That's the other thing. Like, here's the thing. I always am like, oh my god, it'd be so cool to... Little side note. I'd be like, it'd be so cool to go back, like, 500, 400, 1,000 years and just, like, spend 24 hours in that time period. I'm not making it an hour. I'm going there, and I'm making it maybe an hour. Not having my phone, not having internet, not having just the luxuries that we have today to make life easy, not having indoor plumbing. No. As the gears turned, Jasmine saw the machine's door slowly close. I know, yeah. I know, I gotta stop yapping. I've already decided that I'm gonna be late. That's it, she thought blankly. She didn't experience the feeling of having her wish fulfilled, nor was it being pranked. Everything seemed too strange. Congratulations, your wish has been granted. Klein just invented a Zoltar machine. That's all he did. Also, side note, sorry, I'm going on a lot of side notes. Something about the Zoltar machines, if you've ever used one, you know those things are fucking real. Every single time I've used one, I've always gotten a fortune or like something that is like so dead accurate, it's scary. And they're never good. They're always like, you're broke. You need to break up with your boyfriend. You need to stop being a bitch. You are gonna lose all your friends because nobody actually likes you, so you should stop doing that. And that's what it always is. And I'm always just like, oh, okay. Thanks. Given the hard truth. The spot where there were only 2 black holes left had been propped up. Jasmine slowly raised her hand and touched her face, clearly sensing the presence of her nose. And the quality of her breathing proved this point. She suddenly turned around, and her black-facing Merlin Hermes, she walked to the shop by the side of the street and cast her gaze to the glass window. Then she removed her scarf covering her face. Eyes that weren't big, a nose that wasn't too well defined her lips and weren't too full. The freckled face of the girl was reflected in the window. Jasmine subconsciously raised her hand and covered her mouth as her eyes glistened. After a few seconds, she raised her arm and wiped her face with her sleeve. She turned to look at Merlin Hermes and said, "Are you God? I'm just a magician who likes to create miracles." Klein smiled and pointed to the machine beside him. "The thing you should thank the most is that. The fully automatic wishing machine. Fully automatic." Jasmine's emotions stirred as she subconsciously repeated. Klein nodded and said, "Yes, a fully automatic wishing machine that can operate without any external help. You can understand it as a gas meter. As long as you throw a coin, you can get a wish granted, like how you obtain gas. The specific steps are very simple. Throw 1 penny in and make your wish before turning the wrench. Remember, only 3 wishes can be fulfilled." While explaining, Klein immediately mocked himself, as if he was to unfortunately die one day and become a sealed artifact. "I hope it's something similar to a fully automatic wishing machine." After leaving the capital of Mid-Sea Shire, Constant City, Klein changed the method of granting other people's wishes to prevent himself from being too bored. One had to learn to seek joy in a mundane work. How miraculous. Jasmine couldn't find the words to describe how she felt inside. Her exhilarated emotions calmed down a little. Will this fully automatic wishing machine stay here forever? Jasmine asked hesitantly. Klein smiled and said no. "It could stay here for 3 days, or maybe not that long. Perhaps it would disappear when the sun rises, but it won't disappear forever. Perhaps one day you will see it in the corner of a street again." Jasmine's mind was in a mess, and she was unable to sort out her thoughts. All she could do was bow to the machine and say seriously, "Thank you, Mr. Fully Automatic Wishing Machine." Then she bowed to Klein. "Thank you, Mr. Hermes." As soon as she said that, Jasmine recalled the words Merlin Hermes had said, filled with anticipation, surprise, and embarrassment. She asked, 3 wishes can be granted. "Yes, but it won't be free for the future. You will need to pay a penny." Klein realized, unfazed by the question. Klein just wants it an easier life for himself. He's like, if I can just get this machine to do everything for me, we'll be good. Do I read in a radio voice? Because I never watch these back. So I never actually, like, listen to how I read, other than when I know that I'm reading with, like, a really deep voice. And I always just assume you guys will tell me if I sound stupid. Never held you back before. Crazy. Okay. Well, as long as it's good. There you go. Also, yeah, Elma, I'm fine. I was just ranting. I was ranting and rambling for no reason. Doesn't everybody, like, dislike the sound of their own voice, though? I feel like I hear my voice, because I talk a lot at work, and then obviously I do this, so I just hear my voice constantly. Does not everybody get tired of their own voice? I get tired of mine very quick. Chapter 13:13, The Third Wish. Jasmine was excited, but she was still worried. What kind of price has been paid? From her point of view, the prior free attempt didn't mean that subsequent wishes were without a price. Yeah, like it's a love-hate relationship. Like sometimes I'm like, yeah. Yep. And then other times I'm like, please stop talking. I used to hate my voice when I was younger. When I was younger, I used to think I had a really ugly voice. Like I was actually really subconscious of it. But I was also a yapper, so I was like, meh. Oh well. The penny you paid is the price. The corresponding change that you had to bear after achieving your wish is also the price. Jasmine nodded without completely understanding him. Without any hesitation, she reached into her pocket and attempted to take out a few copper pennies for her wish. However, her pocket was empty except for the handkerchief. Having stayed home all this while, she hadn't had any contact with money. She had relied on walking in to go from home to the municipal square instead of taking the trackless public carriage. I can go home first, Jasmine asked, both vexed and embarrassed. Of course, this is your freedom, but I can't guarantee that the fully automatic wishing machine will always be waiting for you here, Klein said with the tone of a magician. Sometimes it's very willful. Jasmine tersely thanked him, and turned around, jogging in the opposite direction of the municipal square. Whenever it doesn't randomly die. Whenever it doesn't go so deep that you would be confused as to where it's coming from. And it happens so instantly, too. The more she ran, the more she relaxed her body became. She found herself in a formerly healthy state before she was burnt, transforming back into a teenage girl in her prime. To her, this was a scene that would only appear in her dreams. Of course, as an ordinary person, she gradually felt exhausted after running for a while. She had no choice but to slow down and begin walking slowly. The cool night breeze blew, revealing resplendent stars peeking through the clouds high up in the sky. The trees by the side of the street swayed gently and scattered to swaying shadows on the ground. All of this was quiet and beautiful. Jasmine only felt her body and mind relax, and all her worries disappeared. This was the first time she was in such a good mood ever since she was injured. Unknowingly, a smile appeared on her face. After walking for 5 minutes, she suddenly heard someone shout her name. Jasmine! Jasmine turned her head and saw a familiar face. It was her former neighbor, Mrs. Hamill. Good evening, Mrs. Hamill. I haven't seen you in a long time. Are you going to the carnival? Jasmine, who was wearing her scarf, said with a heartfelt smile. Mrs. Hamill was a woman with a head of white hair. She carefully sized up Jasmine and said, I haven't seen you since you moved away. I heard that you were injured in a previous blast. Yes, but I recovered. Jasmine nodded heavily. She then asked, how is Jolie doing now? Jolie was Mrs. Hamill's eldest daughter and was her former playmate. Mrs. Hamill's expression instantly wore a shade of gloom. The Phaeacians did unspeakable things. The Phaeacians did unspeakable things to her, and she ended up dying. Jasmine was taken aback, thinking back to her experiences while feeling sad. The Phaeacian's shoulders had rushed into her house in an attempt to do unspeakable things to her, but he only gave her a kick and left her when he saw her disfigured face. Poor Jolie. Jasmine sincerely tapped her chest 4 times, counterclockwise fashion, outlining the stars. It was only after she heard what had happened to her friend that she realized that she might have been relatively lucky. After bidding farewell to Mrs. Hamill, Jasmine walked back to her apartment. When she got home, she felt much better, and her mood went back to normal. She started to look forward to the expression her parents would have when they saw her appearance restored. They probably wouldn't keep the pain deep down in their hearts and pretend that nothing had happened. They would definitely cry with joy and hug me. Jasmine took a key that was hanging around her neck like a necklace, and as she thought about it, she opened the door. The room was dark. No. Is what I think about to happen? None of the candles or the gas wall lamps were lit. On the bed outside, light and heavy snoring could be heard from her. Oh, thank God. Oh my God, thank God. I was like, no, I don't want to. Please, Lord, no. From her parents, forming a constant with the bustling municipal square. They're asleep. Yes, they've been working hard. Jasmine gently closed the door and walked to her parents' bed. With the crimson moonlight shining through the window, she cast her gaze over. Daddy has a lot of white hair, and his wrinkles have deepened. Mommy keeps frowning when she sleeps. Her face is flaky, it's dry and coarse. Only then did Jasmine realize that she had seriously looked at her parents' faces for a long time. She didn't know that they had aged so much. I live in constant fear. Constant fear. Before the war, her father was an accountant with a pretty good income. They could afford rent, a terrace house, and allow his wife to not work so as to focus on taking care of the family. But now, he could only work at textile factories and do all kinds of strenuous labor. Jasmine's mother had no choice but to leave her family and become a textile worker. Daddy's health is getting worse and worse. He's always coughing, but he has passed the recent civil servants unified examination. When the interview results are announced, he will have a decent job. Mommy keeps complaining about her arms getting worse. Jasmine looks at her parent intently and didn't wake them up. She had already thought of her second wish. Softening her footsteps, Jasmine entered the room inside and poured out the last few pennies from her piggy bank that she had previously almost emptied. Then she left the apartment and boarded a trackless public carriage. She was afraid that the fully automatic wishing machine would have been gone if she had delayed any further. At that moment, there were a lot of passengers in the public carriage. Most of them were heading to participate in the carnival. Jasmine looked around and saw that there was no seats. So, she had no choice but to support herself as she stood on the aisle, squeezing with plenty of people. 10 minutes later, she reached her stop and turned into the street. When the brass-colored machine, embedded with a few pieces of glass, appeared before her eyes, Jasmine silently heaved a sigh of relief and quickly approached. During this process, she surveyed the surroundings and didn't find the magician of the name Merlin Hermes. It's real. The fully automatic. There's no need for him to be here by my side. Jasmine muttered in puzzlement. She didn't waste any time. She took out the penny and placed it inside the fully automatic wishing machine. I wish for my parents to be healthy again. I wish that my family would become rich. Jasmine softly spoke, her voice, her wish. She closed her eyes and waited for the miracle to happen. In the next second, she heard the clanging sound as though the coin had rolled out from the fully automatic machine. Jasmine opened her eyes and shook and looked ahead, only to see that the penny she had just put into the machine had landed in a small tray around the coin slot. This wish cannot be fulfilled. A wish can't contain too much context. My wish was actually 2 wishes. With the experience of being cured of her burns, Jasmine didn't suspect that there wasn't something wrong with the fully automatic wishing machine. She seriously thought and stuffed the penny into the coin slot. Then she lowered her head and made the wish softly. I hope my parents are healthy again. This time, she heard the soft knock sound from out of the fully automatic machine. Seeing that the copper coin remained inside the machine, Jasmine knew that her wish had been fulfilled. She couldn't wait to go home and check on her parents' situation. Suppressing her excitement, she inserted another penny. She had originally planned on making her family wealthy, but remembering that her father was basically going to become a civil servant in Limon City and that her family income was guaranteed, she couldn't help but have other thoughts about it. When she was 10 years old, she had already known that she wasn't good looking. It wasn't the people around her would despise her and say that she wasn't good looking, but amongst her playmates there were 2 rather beautiful girls. This allowed them to be accorded with greater treatment and experiences and kindness in the world. pretty privilege. I know what that's like. No, I don't. Such a comparison only served to make Jasmine inevitably dream of becoming prettier as she grew older, but reality proved that dreams could only be dreams. However, this time, her dream could turn into reality because she had a miraculous, fully automatic wishing machine in front of her. Bye, Elma. If I can make myself beautiful, I can find a good husband, and I can I can improve my family situation. Jasmine seemed to have heard the devil whisper in her ear. She closed her eyes uncontrollably and made the wish. I wish to become extremely, extremely, extremely beautiful. She used extremely thrice to accentuate the beauty she wanted. Just as she finished speaking, the door to the fully automatic wishing machine opened once again. A silver white mask was pushed out and covered her face. Jasmine quickly opened her eyes and happened to see the mask disappear. At the same time, she felt something connect to her. She turned around in anticipation once again and walked to the shop by the side of the street, using the light from the gas lamps. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Again, walked to the shop by the side of the street, using the light from the gas lamps and the gas on the window. She saw her current appearance. For a moment, Jasmine couldn't describe the exact changes in her facial features and outline. All she knew was at the moment, even she was mesmerized by her beauty. Her nose had become sharper and her lips had become fuller. Her eyes had become bigger and limpid. Her skin was as tender as milk pudding. She had only slight similarities to a previous self. Is this a miracle? Jasmine couldn't help but let out a heartfelt sigh of amazement. She looked at herself intoxicated. It took a great effort to finally attract her gaze before bowing to a fully automatic wishing machine. Following that, she walked towards the public carriage stop. On the way, her eyes kept turning and looking over at her. A man who was too focused on her slammed into the gas lamppost. Jasmine pursed her lips into a smile. Without a word, she boarded the trackless public carriage. There were still many people on board, and their seats were taken. Just as Jasmine was trying her best to find a spot, several men lifted the buttocks and straightened their bodies. They looked at her and smiled. "Miss, you can sit here." Jasmine was momentarily stunned. She hadn't expected to receive so much kindness. She didn't... What am I reading? I'm getting lost. She didn't decline and sat down. She smiled at the man who had given up his seat. "Thank you." The man's expression became extremely animated as he humbly said, "This is what a gentleman should do." Ew. Jasmine still retained the habit from when she was previously cooped up at home, so she didn't say anything else. She quietly sat until she reached the stop near her apartment, then she got off the carriage. After a few steps, she suddenly felt someone was looking at her. She quickly turned her head and saw it was a drunkard. He was sitting at He was staring at Jasmine with an indiscernible, disgusting look. Jasmine jumped in fright and briskly walked to her apartment. However, the man she met along the way revealed similar looks, as though they could turn into beasts at any moment. Oh my god, no! At that moment, Jasmine felt as though she couldn't... Bro! Props to Cuttlefish for writing it like this, though. At that moment, Jasmine felt as though she was walking in the wilderness. And that's why she should have married a woman. Fucking so gross. Because I know, here's the thing. I know, like, reading that, I'm like, I know exactly that feeling. I know exactly how, like, I know exactly how that feels. I know exactly the situation she's in. I know exactly the feeling she has. Ew. So gross. Previously, Jasmine... No, I don't know. Jasmine, just go inside. Jasmine, just go inside. Please, just go inside. Jasmine enjoyed the gazes. Whoa, pause. Previously, Jasmine enjoyed the gazes from the men, but now, all that was left was anxiety and horror. She hastened her footsteps again, as though she was being chased by the Phasians. Finally, before the men could get close to her, she rushed into the apartment and got rid of them. That girl patted her chest and secretly decided to stay out less at night. Only then did she realize the extraordinary beauty had its disadvantages. After coming down, Jasmine went down to a dimly lit stairs on the 3rd floor and returned home. She used the key she carried with her to open the door. She carefully approached her parents' bed and used the moonlight to examine her face. But here's the thing, it's not Klein's fault. It's not. It's not Klein's fault. Klein did nothing wrong. He granted a wish to a girl who wanted to be pretty. And then Cuttlefish, being a really good writer and not shying away from the realities of being a conventionally attractive woman, wrote what it is actually like. And it's not pretty. It's not. It's not fun. She carefully approached her parents' bed and used the moonlight to examine their faces. Compared to when she left the house not too long ago, her parents' faces were rather ruddy. Their white hair and wrinkles had lessened significantly, and their snoring was almost non-existent. Their health has really been restored. Here's the thing. Yes, she's like, at the end of the day, where it's just like, she did the wish, and I have a hard time with this where I'm just like, oh, it's like, oh, well, you didn't know the consequences. It's like, well, there shouldn't be consequences. There shouldn't be consequences to being attractive. There shouldn't be consequences to being a woman. There should be consequences to going out at night. Are we really mad at Klein for granting a wish so a girl can feel better in her skin and feel more comfortable with herself? Or should we be mad at the NPC characters who are making this young girl feel uncomfortable because she's just trying to go home? That's the real question. Yeah, Klein's just granting wishes. She wanted to be pretty. Compared to when she left the house not too long ago, her parents' faces were rather ruddy. Their white hair and wrinkles were lessened significantly, and their snoring was almost non-existent. Their health had really been restored. Jasmine couldn't help but smile, clearly relieved. Sensing the commotion, her mother's eyelids twitched, slowly opening her eyes. Jasmine held the breath and restrained her smile, preparing to give her mother a surprise. Her mother sat up and looked over, her expression suddenly becoming extremely terrified. Ah, for fuck's sakes. Because now they don't even recognize her. "Who are you?" asked the woman with a shrill voice as she shoved her husband forcefully. "Who am I?" Jasmine was stunned by the question and didn't know how to answer a simple question. At that moment, her father woke up as well. He looked at the beautiful girl in front of him with suspicion and vigilance. "Get out, otherwise I'll call the police." Jasmine's mother left the bed and picked up the candle stand beside her, using it as a weapon. "We don't welcome burglars." Jasmine's father rather politely issued an order from Jasmine to leave. He knew that he had to do his best not to pressure the burglar, otherwise it easily... No, because then she's going to go back outside! Dude, I'm stressing. the extreme responses from the other party. If not for his wife and daughter, he was too afraid of fighting the burglar, but now the entire family was at stake. Jasmine finally snapped out of her daze and hurriedly said, "Daddy, Mommy, I am..." Before she could finish the sentence, her mother started to shove her repeatedly. She was pushed out of the room by her father. No one cared about what she had said. Under circumstances, no one cared. The door to the apartment closed before her very eyes. It left her feeling lost and helpless. She wanted to knock at the door and use the key she carried with her to prove her identity, but at the moment she heard her mother shout at the patrolling police officers downstairs, "There's a burglar! There's a burglar!" "A burglar? Daddy, Mommy don't recognize me anymore. Will they think that I'm murdering myself? Will the police believe that fully automatic wishing machine?" Oh my god. Clyde! Jasmine's heart tightened as she subconsciously decided to leave the apartment first to avoid the police. She would then find her father and mother to explain them carefully at dawn and use their common memories to convince them. She bowed her head and, under the watchful gaze of the neighbors, walked down the stairs and rushed out of the building. Fuck. She ran all the way to the nearby alley and avoided the approaching police officers in the main street. Gasping for air, Jasmine stopped in her tracks. Tears uncontrollably rolled down her face and fell to the ground. Suddenly, a hand reached over and covered her mouth, dragging her into a secluded corner. No. "How much? I'll pay how much it costs." A voice filled with drunkenness rang in Jasmine's ears, as it was as if he had mistaken her for a prostitute, and could no longer resist her allure. Jasmine tried her best to struggle, alarmed, afraid, and desperate. As she was about to break down, the drunkard released his hands. "Miss, are you all right?" A hoarse male voice sounded. Jasmine dashed away from the drunkard before turning around to see the police officer in a black and white checkered uniform. As Jasmine spoke, she began to cry. The policeman looked at her sympathetically and said, "We will take legal action on him. However, miss, you'll need to return to the police station with me to record your statement." Jasmine was in a state of extreme panic and extreme helplessness. She subconsciously nodded. Long after, she sat at the police station testimony. A room nearby facing her was the same police officer and his colleague. The policeman deliberated over his words, "So, you're telling me he didn't..." "So you're telling me he didn't ask you if you were a prostitute and didn't do anything that might come off as soliciting customers?" He was worried. I think I see where this is going, and I'm about to get really fucking mad. He was worried that his words would hurt the beautiful girl in front of him. Jasmine held a cup of coffee and lowered her head to take a sip. "Yes, I just reached the alley." "All right, let's end it here. Miss Jasmine, can you tell us where your house is? We will get someone to send you back." Another policeman tried to get her in his good books. Recalling his parents' reaction, disgusting gazes, Jasmine couldn't help but shudder. She said in tears, "I had a quarrel with my parents and can't return home for the time being. Perhaps you can take me to the nearest hotel?" At this point, she remembered that she was only left with a few pence. There was no way she could stay in a good hotel, and the cheap motels were practically dangerous to her. The first policeman was taken aback. "Okay." On the way to the nearby hotel, the policeman hesitated several times before saying, if you plan on becoming a street girl, you can come..." "If you plan on becoming a street girl, you can come to me. There's no need for you to go through that much effort." Upon hearing this, Jasmine felt on the brink of mental collapse. It was just different from when she saw her face after. Oh my fucking god. Saw her face after the fire. This made her feel extremely insecure, and she remained silent. Fortunately, the police officer didn't force her and sent her into the entrance of the nearest hotel. "There's no need to go in with me. I'll go by myself." Jasmine rejected the policeman's suggestion, sending her to her room. After the police officer left, she quickly walked out of the hotel without completing a check-in procedures. She wanted to go to the municipal square, to the place where the fully automatic wishing machine was, to cancel her previous wish. Such beauty was terrifying. After taking a few steps, Jasmine removed the scarf around her shoulders and wrapped it around her face in layers, just like how she left her home that very night. Back then, there was still burn scar. I promise you, there's nothing off. Unless there is and they want to add it, but I promise you there's nothing off, and it's just she's a pretty girl. It's just she's a pretty girl. And she's young. She's young and she's pretty. Her missing nose and damaged lip made her look like a devil. When she arrived at the municipal square on the trackless carriage, she entered the street once again and saw the brass fully automatic wishing machine. Jasmine's heart immediately calmed down. She quickened her pace and arrived in front of the machine. Then she saw she was at a loss. She didn't know how to cancel her last wish. Your first wish was a free trial, and it was counted in the 3 wishes. So you have one more wish. Jasmine suddenly heard Mr. Merlin's voice. Fucking hell, Klein. She turned her head and saw that across the street under the dim yellow light on the street lamp, the magician wearing the tall hat was looking calmly at her. Good. Jasmine hurriedly took out a copper penny and inserted it into the fully automatic wishing machine. I hope my previous wish is cancelled. She saw that her eyes closed. She gripped the wrench and spun it. She heard a dull thud once again. When she opened her eyes, she rushed to the nearest stop. She stopped in front of the glass window and removed the scarf wrapped around her face. She saw her face again. She was no longer a pretty girl. Jasmine instantly relaxed and instinctively turned her head to look at the fully automatic wishing machine. She found it had disappeared along with Mr. Merlin Hermes. Praise the lady. Thank you, Merlin Hermes. Jasmine sincerely tapped her chest 4 times, clockwise manner. She used her last copper penny to head home on the trackless public carriage. Along the way, no one gave up their seat to her. When her figure vanished from the street, Klein appeared again, holding a silver mirror in ancient patterns. Great master, why didn't you add the line that excessive greed will only turn something good into something bad, or wishes always have a price? This will make the whole matter seem even more philosophical. It will be elevated into a fable. On the surface of the mirror, silver words appeared. Klein smiled and said, the biggest problem was that I couldn't use normal methods to satisfy her extremely beautiful wish. Lie can only adjust her looks to a certain extent. Therefore, I had no choice but to use one of the effects of the sealed artifact that had originated from the demoness to graft it onto her. The result in her stunning beauty was terrifying charm. This made the surrounding men unable to resist her. The sealed artifact belonged to Shio, a relic of the demoness Charmaine. Due to the problem with Shio's shortage abilities, Charmaine's bionic characteristic fused with the box containing it, becoming a sealed artifact and shockingly negative effects. This caused Shio's younger brother to look at the box strangely. In order to resolve this problem, Shio made a wish for Mr. Fool to seal the item from her. After saying this casually, Klein looked at the magician mirror. A road, so you consoling me. No, the main problem was that she's too greedy. If she only wanted to become beautiful and didn't add so many extremelies to the wish, then the result would have been pretty good. On the surface of the mirror, silver words quickly appeared. Indeed, that will be within the extent that can be acted by lie. Klein nodded and said to Rhodes, Lie's adjustments can indeed be permanent, but it's a structure that is ultimately different from the original muscle, skin, and bone structure. After more than a decade, when she's gradually showing signs of age, the adjustment and difference will slowly magnify, making her face appear rather strange and stiff. That can only be fixed periodically by becoming a faceless. Having said that, Klein smiled and shook his head. A lie is ultimately a lie. Then he walked towards the other end of the street and continued. Besides, even if she really becomes more beautiful, it's still uncertain whether she will lead a better life in the future. It's true that beauty allows her to obtain a lot of resources and allows her to marry a prince. However, her personal upbringing, character, and knowledge are unlikely to support such a lifestyle. Yes, I can't rule out the possibility that she's good at studying, being capable of using all kinds of experience to fully enrich herself and ultimately direct herself to possibly having a better life. However, that's a whole other story. Miracles are only for a moment, but fate often a last long-range event. In the conversation with Rhodes, Klein gradually vanished from the end of the street. His understanding of the miracle invoker had deepened again. After returning to her family apartment, Jasmine didn't attempt to open the door. She used a lot of courage to knock on the door. The door opened and her mother appeared in front of her. Oh, you're finally back. Her mother first heaved a sigh of relief and then asked in an abnormal, horrified manner, Your face? Jasmine forced a smile and said, I've been cured by a mister who's good at creating miracles. Mr. Fully Automatic Wishing Machine. Just as her parents suspected that their daughter had been infiltrated by demons, a few policemen in black and white checkered uniforms walked up the stairs and came over. Leading the policeman was a lady. She had light blue eyes and a smile that quieted others. Miss Jasmine, we have some questions for you, the lady said politely. Jasmine felt that she couldn't have been afraid, and she found it difficult to have much strong emotions facing the female police officer. Oh, hi, Wiz. She felt like her body and mind had unknowingly settled down after crying for a long time. She looked at her parents, who had complicated expressions, and asked hesitantly, "Okay, what are your questions do you have?" The female policeman with the rank of superintendent pointed to the door and said, "Let's talk inside." She didn't get Jasmine's parents to leave. She only ordered the 2 police officers with her to guard by the door. After closing the door, she pulled the crude round stool over and sat down, without standing on ceremony, looking very relaxed. This immediately made Jasmine and her parents less tense. "You may call me Ma'am Gray." The officer introduced herself and pointed to another chair and the bed. "Have a seat." When everyone in the room found their seats, she smiled at Jasmine and said, "I received a report saying that there were some incomprehensible things happening around you. For example, a male desire for committing sexual assault had far exceeded normal standards. This doesn't mean that there are no bad people or criminals among them, but the ratio is too high, so high that it's strange." At this moment, she swept her gaze across Jasmine's face. "From what I know, you were seriously injured during the fire and were permanently disfigured, but now I can't tell any of that. What do you have to say about this?" Jasmine's heart tensed up again. She didn't dare hide anything and said that in panic. "I went out tonight and to the municipal square to attend the carnival. When I was passing by a particular street, I encountered a wandering magician who called himself Merlin Hermes. He said that he had invented a machine called a fully automatic wishing machine. All I had to do was insert a penny, softly state my wish, and turn the wrench, then my wish would be granted. He said that I was first user, so I could experience it for free once, then I was restored to my original state, having all of my injuries healed. Officer, that's what happened. You must believe me." With that, she glanced at Mrs. Gray and her assistant before looking at her parents, trying to get their approval. However, her parents clearly said, "How is this possible? How can there be a machine that can automatically grant the wishes of others? How can there be something as good as granting a wish cost only a penny? Besides, the first user experienced it for free." Gray and her assistant didn't show any obvious expressions, making Jasmine unsure to believe her or not. Continue. Seeing her pause, Gray noted encouragingly. Jasmine hurriedly mentioned how she returned home to get some coins before recounting in full how she wished from her parents to regain her health and how she waited to become beautiful. Finally, she said, "I was indeed very beautiful. Even I couldn't move my eyes away. This made my experience a lot of kindness, but later on, the surrounding men started to frighten me. In addition, my dad and mom didn't recognize me and chased me out of the house. I was scared, very scared. I returned to the machine and made a third wish. Yes, that Mr. Merlin Hermes said that the first wish was free and wasn't part of the 3 wishes. In short, I returned to my original appearance and met you." Upon hearing these words, Jasmine's parents instantly thought of the beautiful burglar from before. Then they realized that their bodies were indeed much healthier than before, and their vision had recovered from their arms in sufficient strength. Everything seemed different. They began to believe Jasmine's description, but they felt even more terrified. It was as if they had encountered a demon, exactly the same as those stories in folklore. Gray nodded gently. "I've seen many matters that are beyond your imagination, but this is the first time I've heard of something like a fully automatic wishing machine. Compared to the wishing lamp or wishing pool in folklore, this is too modern." After a pause, her expression turned serious. "As an experienced law enforcer, I'll give you 3 suggestions. First, don't believe in such things again, and from now on, under most circumstances, the easiest granting of wishes brings about a huge disaster. There's nothing wrong with describing it as a temptation of demons." Jasmine nodded heavily, indicating that she wouldn't dare do it again. The final experience still left her feeling afraid. "Secondly, go to the cathedral as soon as possible and repent to the bishop. Get him to purify you." Gray looked around and said, "Your entire family must go." Seeing that Jasmine and her parents were about to say that they had already had this in mind, Gray turned to Jasmine. "My department still lacks some staff. You can consider joining us. This way I can monitor your situation at any time and deal with the abnormalities in time. As for the salary, trust me, it's about the same as a civil servant." "The salary is about the same as a civil servant? I can be protected." "There's something that's nice." Jasmine asked in disbelief, "What department is it?" Gray smiled and said, "I'll give you an address. Come by my office tomorrow and I'll fill you in on the details." All right. Jasmine was in a state of panic. Uneased, she would grab a life-saving straw and a moment appeared. "Oh my god, it's giving Volume 1 Klein!" It's giving when Klein joined the Nighthawks and the Backland Security Company. A week later, Jasmine's officially joined the Nighthawks in Oh my god! A week later, Jasmine officially joined the Nighthawks in Lemon City and became a civilian staff member. Jasmine! Girl, I'm so proud of her. Loving this development. You know what? I love Jasmine. I know she's gonna do so great. In the end, everything worked out. Jasmine learned a lesson. Lesson that maybe could be learned a different way, but Jasmine learned a lesson. She now works for the Nighthawks. Yay. Love that for her. Captain, the telegraph office has broken down, she said carefully and knocked on Gray's door. Gray put down the document in her hand and rubbed her temples. Report this to the police station, let them handle it. Seriously, I could have gotten the help with the machinery I had mine in the past. It was done quick and efficiently. Now, by the time Jasmine left, Gray picked up the documents and began to read them carefully. This was a piece of information that the Nighthawks had gathered regarding the fully automatic wishing machine. After Jasmine, this happened more than once. After flipping through the documents, Gray spread out a piece of paper, picked up the fountain pen, and began writing the official documents for the constant Archbishop of the Holy Cathedral. There have been many spiritual incidences in the city in the past week. It involves a special machine called the fully automatic wishing machine. According to the intel, this was created by a wandering magician who calls himself Merlin Hermes. But we haven't ruled out other possibilities. At least, I think that Merlin might be an illusion created by the machine so as to lure people into making wishes. This machine is a brass color embedded with opaque glass. Its surface has gears, bearings, rivets, metal pipes, and other components exposed on the surface. It seems to be a product of modern industrialization. Case 1. A young girl who was disfigured by fire had met the fully automatic machine in a municipal square. Her first wish was to revert back to her original appearance, and it was granted normally. Her second wish was to restore her parents' health, which was also granted normally. Her third was to become extremely, extremely, extremely beautiful. Then she no longer looked like herself, and she had an irresistible charm to the men around her. She claimed that she was the first user of the fully automatic wishing machine, which allowed her to have one free wish. With that, she cancelled her third wish. Case 2. A retired soldier who participated in the war to defend Lemon was left with serious mental damage. He met the fully automatic wishing machine by the river. His first wish was to restore his mental state to the state before the war, and it was granted normally. His second wish was to become a little more handsome so as to reach the standards of the male models on magazines' covers. He also had it granted normally. His third wish was to obtain £100,000 and become a tycoon. Then he was caught the fancy of the owner of Lemon United Steel Company, who wished to marry him, a lady with a wealth of nearly £200,000. This retired soldier didn't wish to accept her with her weight having... Hold up, am I reading this right? The retired soldier didn't wish to accept her with her having a weight of more than 200 pounds and her shorter than average height. Furthermore, she is a volatile middle-aged woman. Okay, well, he prepared to leave Lemon and head south. If there comes a day when he doesn't want to work hard anymore, he can easily obtain the rights to the wealth of £100,000. In a sense, his wish was granted, but he is unwilling to accept it. Case 1, Case 4, or not Case 1, Case 3, Case 4. Case 5. A public school teacher met a fully automatic wishing machine near the Storm Cathedral. Her first wish was to make herself look better and not to be ostracized by the students because of her looks or spurred by her colleagues. This was granted normally. Her second wish was to obtain a better position, which was also granted, and her teaching standards were high enough, and she was no longer restricted by her looks. She quickly became the most popular teacher among the students and began taking on the duties of vice principal. Her third wish was to have a husband with impeccable looks, family background, personality, and ability. Finally, she got a doll who could speak, move, and have a certain level of intelligence. It had living characteristics and looked rather handsome. It was carved by the best master and could have any personality one wanted. It was very capable in every aspect. Other than not being human, it had no flaws. Case 6. Summarizing these cases, we have obtained some preliminary guesses. The fully automatic wishing machine can appear anywhere in Le Mans. It's extremely random, and there's temporarily no discovered pattern for it. Most of the wishes that are made can be fulfilled normally, however, a small portion will be distorted, and the latter is basically considered on the third wish. Of course, it is also possible for the person who will let themselves lose by the time they make the third wish, and thus make excessive demands. The wishes granted are most related to appearance, but it's covered in a wide scope. It is also almost omnipotent. The frequency of the appearances is also irregular. This is a classic example of a mystical item that needs to be sealed. Furthermore, it clearly exceeds the grade of a grade 2 sealed artifact. I hope the Archbishop and the high-ranking deacons will personally deal with it, or give an effective sealing method. On the steam locomoted out of Lemon, Klein observed his digestion of the miracle Velcro potion. What'd you say? What's wrong with being... First, it should be erasing all dangerous knowledge of higher beings, and second one would be letting me walk the path. Fair. What did Wiz ask about me? Do I even want to know? He asked if my hair was thinning. Crazy. I think it actually looks thicker than normal today. It's just a bit flatter. Yeah, it actually is a bit thicker than normal today. But it's just a bit flatter. I don't think on the back it is. I think it's chill. I was balding for a little bit there. Like, I had, like, because I have a lot of health problems, it comes out in my hair really bad, so I'll lose a lot of hair very quickly, and then I'll gain it back really quickly. It's really weird. My hairdressers have always found it really weird, but, like, it'll be a 3-month span, and I'll lose so much hair that I'll have, like, little bald spots around, and then it'll be, like, 2-3 months and it'll all grow back. And my hair has always done this because I get sick. Yeah, you said not on the front. And then I said, no, I don't think I have it on the back, and I don't think I have it on the front either. So. And yeah, I have very like white people hair. Very much so. Like, I have to wash it every other day. Sometimes I can get away with like every third day, but I do have to wash it more frequently because it's more oily and it is very thin. And it's, yeah, that's just the way it is. It's naturally curly. Like, my whole family has very curly hair, but mine just doesn't want to do that for some reason. There you go. Fun fact about Dara's hair. I don't think you can ever slander me about my hair. My hair's been through enough. Anything you guys say, I've already said. Chapter 13:16, An Unknown City. If I keep accumulating it bit by bit, I won't be long before I can respond to Moon City's prayers and cure their deformities, thus creating quite a miracle. In addition, I've also concluded that the acting principles of Miracle Invoker, it's only a matter of time before I digest it. If I followed them, I might not even finish within a year. I know. It's only a matter of time before I digest it if I followed them here. I might not even finish within the year. Klein retracted his gaze outside the window, raised his left arm, and controlled the monster puppet on his hand to entertain the child across him. This made him look more like a wandering magician. If he was willing, he could even use life's cane or the grafting ability to imbue a sock puppet with a living characteristic. While entertaining the child, Klein thoughts scattered as he considered the marionette city needed to be built for an advancement ritual. A marionette city needs sufficient interaction and development to corresponding regions in the spirit world. This means that it isn't enough to leave it in the forsaken land of the gods. Ignoring the fact that it's sealed there's no way of directly connecting to the spirit world. All I can do is rely on the little specialness it has. Even if there's no problem with it, it's definitely to create my interactivity with a place that lacks intelligent life. If it's a place near the northern southern continent and the sea colonies, I have to be careful. Before the ritual is about to succeed, I definitely can't expose the fact that it's a marionette city. Otherwise, it will be affected, damaged, or even attacked by Zeratul, Amon, or my other enemies. Yes, I have to give a sufficiently good reason for my marionette city to appear. Then there won't be any abnormalities with the interactions between the traveling mechanisms and surrounding humans. I have to make every marionette a living person. They have their past, present, and future. They follow their own trajectories of fate. This means that the marionette city is extremely complicated and need a spirit out of many worms of spirits to deal with it. This also has a risk of losing control by doing so. This means that the marionette city is extremely complicated. I need a spirit out many worms of spirit to deal with it. This also has a risk of losing control by doing so. If they are husband and wife, they should act like husband and wife when faced with something they are fond of, or they should show joy. Perverts should be hated. This way, foreigners might hear embarrassing stories while staying in the marionette city. I'm still just an innocent child. This is a large-scale reality show, a rather high-end version of Playing House. It has to be able to deceive the audience. As Klein lampooned inwardly, he silently counted if he had enough marionettes. Previously, he had gone to the Forsaken Land of the Gods several times and converted a large number of them. There were all kinds of monsters that might not been beyond her characteristics. He also cautiously controlled batches of rats, cockroaches, mosquitoes, and flies, hoping to make a more uncommon side of the city real enough. I'm barely able to support a small city, so just a few more visits to the Forsaken Land of the Gods would do. Just as thoughts flashed through Klein's mind, a scene suddenly appeared in front of him. At the top of the Giant King's court, which was battled in the light of dusk, an open door slowly, heavily closed, like this pair of invisible hands closing the entrance to the Forsaken Land of the Gods. Klein's eyes darkened as he vaguely guessed that this might mean that the true creator was about to seal off the Forsaken Land of the Gods again. This was a prophetic power that came from the angel-level spirit intuition and premonition for danger. It was about to happen a few minutes or a few seconds later. Did the true creator capture Amon, or has he already given up? He once again sealed off the Forsaken Land of the Gods. Does he not want others to enter again? It's this too petty. Klein mumbled inwardly, feeling a little disappointed. Bro, why are we doing this much right now? Of course, he barely had enough marionettes. Even if he lacked them, he could make up for the sea, Backland, Empress Borough. Audrey had just changed her clothes and sent away her maidservants. She was just about to leave when she saw Susie walk in. What's the matter? You should be on your stroll at this time. As an experienced spectator, Audrey immediately sensed that something was amiss. During this period of time, she had been busy making use of the influence. She had a few foundations to help the workers, farmers, and injured veterans win their hardships. She had allowed them to wait for their new job opportunities in the plantation productions in the new season. She had a lot less interjections with Susie than usual. At the same time, Audrey was secretly guiding the workers of the lower socioeconomic status from various unions in Backland to gather their strength together. Her previous experiences made her understand that counting on the kindness of upper class wasn't reliable or long-lasting. A single person appeared puny and powerless in the face of a government, nobles, and powerful merchants. Only by summoning the combined strength of a large number of civilians could a balance be formed. Shocker. The Lowen Kingdom had unions in different industries a long time ago, but the upper echelons of these associations were easily bribed. In a shock to absolutely no one, the people in power are corrupt. Who would have seen that coming? Not me. The effective weapons against ordinary workers. Susie glanced at Audrey with a rather normal expression. Her mouth seemed to be out of control. It vibrated in the air and let out a deep male voice. Miss Audrey, I am the president of the psychology alchemist, Eric Drake. I wish to meet you and discuss with you becoming a counselor in the psychology alchemist. I'm in the nearby park. Having said that, Susie heaved a long sigh of relief and regained her original voice. Audrey, there's a strange guy looking for you. I can't remember what he looks like. He directly placed the words I wanted to say into my mind island. Audrey's pupils dilated slightly before immediately returning to normal. She calmly nodded and said, Where is he at the park? As she spoke, Audrey secretly conjured a virtual persona and entered Susie's mind island through the sea of collective subconscious. She checked if there was still disordered by some external consciousness or knowledge. I don't remember. I was having my stroll, Susie said as she recalled. Then she wagged her tail slightly and said, I don't think you should go. It's dangerous. After confirming that Susie didn't have any latent problems with her virtual persona, Audrey exhaled and said, It will be even more suspicious if I don't go. That way danger will be unavoidable. It might even affect the rest of the people in the house. Besides, this is also an opportunity. Just as Mr. Hangman said, since the end of the world is coming, all the hard work and attempts that will not be disaster are meaningful. Audrey asked inwardly before saying, I will protect myself. Susie, did anything happen to you just now? Susie barked and said no. Audrey, are you really gonna go? Yes, Audrey gave a clear answer. Then can you bring me along, just like before? I'm just a dog in their eyes. Susie mustered up the courage and said, No, there's no need. I'll be back very soon. Believe me, I'll be blessed by a deity. Audrey replied with a faint smile. After comforting Susie, she used her psychology and visibility and left a luxurious villa as she usually did. When she was far away at the corner of the first floor, a servant who was cleaning suddenly bowed her head and softly said the words that had never learned before. The fool that doesn't belong to this era. In the ancient palace above the fog, the figure standing at the fool's seat naturally looked at the newly formed prayer light and realized that the believer was extremely unfamiliar. It's identical to Miss Justice's home environment. I can suspect that it's a result of guidance created by a virtual persona invasion of the Mind Island. Miss Justice used the method to avoid any surveillance or praying for blessings. The figure quickly came to a conclusion and transferred the corresponding situation to his true body. A few seconds later, Klein entered Zephyr Castle and allowed the worm's spirit to burrow into the body. Miss Justice is becoming more and more like a high-sequence spectator. Klein prays inwardly and cast his gaze to the crimson star representing justice. In the park with the lake, as soon as Audrey entered, she saw a large carriage drive over. The carriage driver was an ordinary middle-aged man wearing an old hat and dark-colored jacket. However, in Audrey's eyes, the carriage driver didn't exist because he didn't have a corresponding island of consciousness or mind. In other words, the carriage driver was just an illusion, a fake, and a controller of the carriage that was... of the carriage was the horse itself. A few seconds later, the large carriage stopped in front of Audrey and the door creaked open. Please come in. The deep male voice came from inside. Audrey lifted the ends of her skirt slightly and boarded the carriage. She saw the man sitting on the black wheelchair. His pale yellow eyebrows were long and his hair was neatly combed back. There were some wrinkles on his forehead and his face was abnormally pale. Mr. Durlua, aren't you already dead? Audrey recognized the man in front of her and expressed her smile perfectly. To a spectator, death is only represented the end of one's identity. Another theatrical play, I'm still alive. The elder gentleman who was sitting in the black wheelchair replied with a smile. Apart from the former royal family medical consultation, the former counselor of the Backlund Medical School, I'm also king of Backthrone Boris Hopkins at sea. I'm in the famous hermit Eric Drake, etc. Then, how should I address you? Audrey asked politely as she watched the door close automatically from the corner of his eyes. Gentlemen wearing top hats and trench coats, as well as women in complicated and dark dresses. As Audrey swept her gaze, she saw a gentleman with short black hair beside the carriage, revealing sharp canine fangs in his mouth. This was a werewolf. Okay. Okay. Huh. What is this place? Audrey asked without much change in her expression, as though she was asking about the location of the ball tonight. Polly Derlo, fucking hell, who claimed to be the president of the Psychology Alchemist, cast his gaze at the window as well. He smiled and said, This is the city in everyone's hearts. It's presented where the people are. Audrey nodded in thought. In other words, you can enter this place from my corner of human society. Deluge stroked his wheelchair and said, That's right. He didn't explain further, instead pointed at the pedestrians outside the carriage. Everything here has a corresponding psychological symbol. They're called bestial desire. Bestial desire. Audrey repeated the word silently as she maintained her dignified posture. She cast her gaze even further. Amongst the pedestrians, there were werewolves, as well as walking upright bears. There were cats with lazy expressions, and there were strange men with faces of spotted spiders. A huge mouse with red eyes, a python with its tongue sticking out, and a canine creature that studied every creature that passed it by with eyes filled with desire to mate. They were either wearing a top hat or a trench coat, or an exquisite and complicated long dark dress, doing their best to imitate humans in every detail, but they were unable to truly resemble a human. The carriage traveled through the darkness of the night, traveling between pedestrians and all kinds of Gothic buildings. Soon they arrived at the cathedral in the middle of the city. The cathedral was more than 80 meters tall, propped up thanks to numerous black columns. Each pillar was embedded with a certain number of skulls. Some of them came from humans, while others came from different creatures. However, their empty eye sockets were tied downwards, as though they were observing every living creature that entered the cathedral. Just like most buildings here, every detail in the cathedral could be said to be exquisite, but they formed in elementals that leaned towards nightmare, horror, terror, and mystery. After getting off the carriage, Audrey saw a grand but empty hall through the main door. In the depths of the hall stood a huge cross. Curled around the cross was a grayish-white dragon statue. Unlike ordinary cathedrals, there was no pews for believers to pray, nor were there places for candles to stand. However, in front of the dragon statue, there was a small, long table. On both sides of the long table were 5 seats, and the seats were both ends were empty. Perlu wheeled himself at the end of the long table where the seat of honor was. Then he pointed to his left. Please take a seat. Audrey slowly followed behind him. She looked around and casually pulled out the chair before sitting down. She wasn't too close to the president of the psychology alchemist, nor was she too far. She perfectly showed her vigilance and didn't show any signs of guilt. Parlu raised her hands and clasped them together before placing them on the surface of the long table. Miss Audrey, I have something to ask you. Please speak. Audrey turned her head slightly and responded with her green eyes. Derlu nodded slightly and said, I would like to know how you advanced to sequence 4 manipulator. Where did you get the potion formula and beyond your characteristics? Audrey replied frankly. It was from a deal. A client wished to receive the help of a spectator demigod and had paid the manipulator potion formula and beyond characteristics in advance. Derlu immediately laughed. That actually happened. These generous conditions resemble a father finding an excuse to give his daughter a present. Can you tell me exactly what kind of help you provided? Kill another demigod. In this manner, control of one's mind was rather crucial, Audrey simply explained. Her attitude was very calm, as if she was talking about homework given to by a teacher. Derlu's long and fluffy eyebrows thickened as he said, and you succeeded. The results are obvious enough. Audrey gave an answer rather tactfully. Derlu sized her up and realized that the noble girl on his left was a manipulator who could kill other demigods. Audrey read through his thoughts and added, I was just one of the participants. Derlu nodded and said, Do you know where the client's manipulator potion formula and biotic characteristics came from? He didn't tell me, straight with regards to the question. Audrey gave an answer with a sentence she had long planned out. He? Can you tell me who he is? Derlu asked after some deliberation. Audrey had been guarding against other parties' virtual personas from infiltrating her mind island. However, she had yet to notice anything abnormal since the beginning. This made her suspect that the other party didn't need to infiltrate her mind. All he needed to do was observe the fluctuations of the surrounding sea of collective subconsciousness and understand her true thoughts. She didn't make any attempts to hide the calmly replied. This concerns an agreement between us. I believe honoring one's promise is morally standards that the entirety world approves of. And in mysticism, this comes into play at a deeper level. Having said that, Audrey took the initiative to say, If you can't really trust me because of this inability to mention this, I am willing to accept. I can only remain an ordinary member and use my contributions in exchange for the psychological research materials that are available to me. Derlu smiled when he heard that. Everyone has their own secrets. This is very normal. What I need to assess is whether your secret will affect the safety of the entirety of the psychology alchemists. He looked deeply at Audrey and said, Then, can you tell me how you got to know such a client? I remember that I once reported that before joining the psychology alchemist, I really didn't come into contact with some people in the mysticism circles and got to know a few beyonders. Audrey said, in truth, that couldn't be any truer. As for what the real logical order to the answer was, it was another matter. Furthermore, the matter regarding Haven Rambus' disappearance was stemmed from the investigation of Fours and Chio, was something both parties had never talked about but had definitely acknowledged. Derlu retracted his hands from the table and placed them on his chest. There's another thing I would like to ask. When was the last time you met Haven Rambus? Audrey frowned slightly and said, I remember that I've been asked before. After Haven Rambus' death, she didn't immediately cut off any contact with the psychology alchemist. She continued to maintain a certain connection with upper echelons through Hibbert, Stefan, and Escalante. Only when the war reached Backlund did she realize that she couldn't contact the members of the psychology alchemist cell for various reasons. I need to confirm it in person, Derlu said calmly. Audrey nodded gently and said, the last time I met Haven Rambus was Viscount Glaine's mansion. At that time, I hypnotized my 2 Beyonder friends I knew, as per his instructions, and asked them why they were investigating Viscount Stratford, who the mastermind behind this was. At that time, Councillor Haven Rambus was nearby, entrusting that nothing went wrong with the hypnotism. After he received the answer, he quickly left. After that day, I never saw him again. As she answered, Audrey was still guarding against the invasion of her mind island. However, it was calm there, and nothing happened. This didn't make Audrey feel relaxed. Instead, she became more wary. She didn't even dare to think about anything related to Mr. Fool in the world, Cameron Sparrow. She was only certain of one thing. As long as she was exposed to danger, Mr. Fool would definitely provide her protection. It's identical to your previous answer, Derlu nodded slowly. He then looked into Audrey's green eyes and said frankly, I can't use mysticism methods to trace the origins of the bionic characteristics in your body. This means that the person who provided it has an unimaginable existence behind them. Audrey nodded slightly, but forcefully expressing that she agreed with his assessment. I cannot force you to not cooperate with other Beyonders or make deals. It's unrealistic. I just hope that you can promise not to reveal anything about the psychology alchemist to anyone. At the very least, when you wish to entrust certain missions to others, you have to package them and hide the secrets. Derlu said calmly as he retracted his gaze. Audrey replied without hesitation, I promise not to tell any living creature that isn't qualified to know about the matters regarding the psychology alchemist. She took the initiative to amplify the concept all the way of that of a living being to make up for any loopholes in her promise. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt her thoughts surface from her mind island. These thoughts intertwined, turning into a illusory net that sped through Audrey's mind island, turning into her subconscious. As the restriction net came from Audrey's spirituality, she would be incapable of removing it, even if she became an angel. She would lose the intention of talking about the psychology alchemist when she faced non-members or people who didn't qualify to know about them. And she wouldn't realize this. He didn't invade any spiritual island, just my words alone made the promise turn something substantial. While Audrey was alarmed, her expression didn't show. Of course, she didn't completely restrain herself, as being surprised by such means was an instinctive reaction from a manipulator. Based on this point, the suspect that either there was something wrong with the city that existed in the heart, or that Derlu, the psychology alchemist president, wasn't just at the level of a saint. Seeing Audrey make her promise, Derlu pointed at the long table of satisfaction and said, From now on, you are Chancellor of the Psychology Alchemist. You can choose a persona mask as your code name. As he spoke, 7 grayish-white masks appeared on the long table. They were rather illusory and abnormally cold. 5 of them were placed in front of the corresponding seats, as though they had already had a master. The remaining 2 persona masks are Wraith and Pride. Derlu introduced. They come from the holy bribe of the creator of the third epoch. Audrey thought for a second before reaching out her hand to the mask that didn't contain any anger. I choose Pride. Derlu looked at her and chuckled. That was the choice Haven Rambus made back then. Sven counselors. Also number. To Sven. They're just all Norwegian. Is Sven Norwegian name? It's a Scandinavian name. Maybe it's Finnish. Or Swedish. It's something. Audrey's right hand paused for a moment before returning to normal. She picked up the mask known as pride. A 50% chance isn't low, she replied to Polly DeLua simply. I think it's Swedish too. That's why, this way to say that picking the mask that Haven Rambus had worn before wasn't a surprising coincidence. With that said, Audrey wore the cold gray mask on her face. Almost instantly, she felt that she had an additional virtual persona that had appeared in her mind island. This didn't stem from the outside world, but rather magnification of what she already knew to the extremes. They received very little education. They have made the right choice under my guidance. Not everyone has had enough intelligence. On the contrary, most people are very stupid. Those workers are impulsive and irrational. They're easily enticed by tiny perks and have no foresight. Only with me thinking for them, guiding them, and making decisions for them can they be saved. They are worthy of pity, but they are not worth communicating with. These thoughts echoed in Audrey's mind, almost making her believe that this was the truth. After all, this was partial feedback that she had received from previous observation and experiences. It wasn't something that had been fabricated out of thin air. With a sweep of her gaze, Audrey saw herself from the smooth surface of the long table. On the cold gray mask, her eyes moved upwards, fixing it. Okay, look, I know she's not. But Audrey as a villain would go so hard, but like, not as your classic villain. Like, as like a prideful... I'm trying to think of what character would be a good example of it. But just as like a prideful, evil, manipulative, like, character. I don't want her to, but that would be so good. Like, could you imagine, and obviously this didn't happen, but could you imagine if Cuttlefish continued the story and then, like, Audrey became evil through all of the, like, perks and things that she got from being, like, one of the first people in the tarot club? I don't know, because here's the thing, it could be like Adam, but I don't really know enough about Adam's character. We haven't had enough. Like, it probably is like Adam, but I just think seeing Audrey's development from her being this innocent girl to her being a villain, that would go so hard. It'd be so good. I also don't think Adam is prideful, like, from what I've seen. Yeah, like, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him. But Audrey could be. Oh my god, Audrey totally could be. She could also have a huge savior complex. Audrey as a villain could have a huge savior complex, be incredibly prideful, manipulative. Oh my god, it would be so good. Oh, what a missed opportunity. Oh my god, such a missed opportunity. On the cold gray mask, her eyes moved upwards, fixing it to the fort. With the sweep of her gaze, Audrey saw herself from the smooth surface. I know, I'm so excited. It's gonna be so good. No, literally! Oh my god. It would have been Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker. Audrey was the chosen one. She was. And she turned evil. She turned to the dark side. Call of Cthulhu. If it wasn't for the fact... Oh, what was I? With the sweep of her gaze, Audrey saw herself from the smooth surface on the long table. On the cold gray mask, her eyes moved upwards, fixing it to her forehead as though she could see things high above without a care about anything else. It was funny, strange, and secretly horrifying. Audrey fell silent. A few seconds later, she said in a deep voice, "Is this pride?" And she likes it. If it wasn't for the fact that she had long escaped her misconceptions through the exchange between Mr. World, Mr. Hangman, and Mem Hermit, she might have been truly affected by Pride's persona. As for what would happen after being affected, she couldn't tell. You recovered much faster than I expected. It looks like you haven't lost your experience of manipulating others, Jerlu said approvingly. Audrey replied thoughtfully. Mr. Havenrambus has always appeared a little proud. Jerlu clasped his hands on his chest and said, You could tell? Only occasionally. Some details. Audrey replied in 2 short sentences. Jerlu sighed and shook his head with a smile. This mask's influence on Havenrambus was worse than I expected. Besides, he usually put on a very good disguise. Under the premise, I don't find it strange that he has gone missing. His arrogance will make it impossible for him to see the path beneath his feet. It will make him look down on Beyonders who are weaker than him, and this will often bring great danger. Audrey resisted the urge to recall Havenrambus' death and asked in deliberation. These 7 personalities can amplify the corresponding knowledge and emotions to help us realize our own problems, so that we can deal with them directly. At the same time, they will also bring negative effects and unknowingly change its wearer's personality. The new nodded slightly. In the mind domain, it's very difficult to obtain external help that's pure and without danger. One has to have enough internal strength to avoid the corresponding negative effects. You have walked the right path for you to realize this. Audrey was just about to take the opportunity to discuss some questions about the mind domain when she suddenly saw the mask on the table disappear. She subconsciously turned her head, looked at the entrance to the cathedral. She saw her figure walk in through the door. This figure was wearing a 3-piece formal wear suit and his tap. He had a half-top hat in his hand. He wore a mask that disappeared early on. The mouth on the mask was open wide until it reached close to the ears. Its mouth remained open as if it wanted to swallow everything and his eyes could see. Is this Gluttony? This is one of the chancellors of the psychology alchemist, Mr. Gluttony. Yeah, Jerlu and his introductions. Following that, they remained chancellors of the psychology alchemist and arrived one after another. They were Mr. Lust, Ma'am Greed, Miss Sloth, and Mr. Envy. As a senior spectator, Audrey was the first to notice the difference of their masks. Greed was similar to Gluttony. His mouth reached his earlobes, but it wasn't open. I love so much when As a senior spectator, Audrey was the first to notice the difference in their masks. Greed was similar to Gluttony. Her mouth reached her earlobes, but it wasn't open. Furthermore, his eyes were closed. Lust was similar to Pride, but its eyes were different from ordinary people. They had shrunk to the middle of their nose as though they were looking for people at the bottom. Envy's eyes, ears, nose, mouth were slightly slanted and a gloomier temperament. Sloth's eyes were tightly shut and his mouth naturally drooped, giving off the feeling that the wearer was sleeping. Seeing all the chancellors present, Jerlu smiled and said, "Let's wait for another friend. He will be the 7th chancellor." 8. I forgot to count myself. Just as he said that, the figure entered the cathedral main door. The figure wore a shirt, vest, and black trench coat, and was half-top hat. At a glance, he was a rather fashionable gentleman. However, after some observation, Audrey realized that there was a huge rabbit under the human clothes. Its eyes were bright red, and its fur was snow white. The rabbit walked inside one step at a time and stopped at the side of the table. It happened beside Audrey. "Unfortunately, you only have one choice." Jerlu smiled as he pointed to the wraith masked on the table. The rabbit let out a male human voice. "I've always been very gentle. It's a good opportunity for me to experience wraith." As it spoke, is it like a... It picked up the persona mask and wore it on the face. The mask's eyes were wide and his mouth were wide open, as though an angry roar would shout at any moment. So it's like a humanoid rabbit? Is it just a furry? Is it just a furry? Like what? The mask's eyes were wide and its mouth was wide open, as though the anger roar would shout out at any moment. After Mr. Wraith sat I'm just curious. I don't know who it is. Angry roar would shout out at any moment. After Mr. Wraith sat down beside Audrey, Jerlu clapped his hands and said, "I formally introduce the 2 chancellors that will be joining our council. This is Miss Pride, and this is Mr. Wrath. They are both demigods and have atoms in the domain of the mind." In addition, Miss Pride will be in charge of the greater Backland area in Lowen Kingdom. Upon saying that, Derlu looked at Audrey and said, "You might not be aware, but you're rooted in the masses of psychologists, psychiatrists, and corresponding aficionados. Our strength is mainly concentrated in large cities and not small cities and villages. Therefore, every chancellor is responsible for a city and surrounding areas." Then Derlu continued, "Mr. Wraith is in charge of Lenberg, capital Ashari. Mr. Lust is in charge of the Intis capital Trier, of course." Of course. Shocking. Mem Greed is in charge of the Faceac capital, St. Milome. Miss Sloth is in charge of the Fenerbada capital, Fenerbader City. Miss Envy is in charge of the Intis Republic, Tilisi City. Mr. Gluttony is in charge of the Lowen Kingdom's Constant City. After the introduction, Derlu added, "Our psychology alchemist..." Ow, I cut my hand. "Our psychology alchemist mission is to exploration, discover, and research. We do not care about the affecting of the scope, members, numbers, resources. Therefore, we do not..." Sorry, I just mumbled that. "Numbers, resources, etc. Therefore, we do not have any counselors in the Fog Sea or Berserk Sea, the Stony Sea, or the Southern Continent. Of course, there will often be members who will go out to the sea to explore the ruins of the Southern Continent in search of ancient history. I forgot that I am the king of the Black Throne of the Five Seas." Nice. St. Milum, Constant, Tilisi, nearly half of the counselors of the psychology alchemists are Mid-Seashire region. Audrey acutely sensed a problem. She came to the noble family and had received good education when she was young. She was no stranger to the geographical location of every city in the northern continent. She knew that Faceac, St. Milum, Lowen's Constant, and Intis Tilisi were big coast cities in Mid-Seashire. Although they can comprehend the three major church cities of Backland, Trier, and Fenerbader City, each of them was quite large. Furthermore, there were many medium-sized cities around them. This made the Mid-Seashire coast become a more vibrant economic zone in the northern continent, the area with the biggest population. Under such circumstances, it wasn't too surprising that the focus of the psychology alchemist was placed on the Mid-Seashire. I love how I get angry. Audrey genuinely didn't think that the psychology alchemists were too intense in expansion. After the chancellors got to know each other, Derlu turned his head and said to Audrey, "Miss Pride, Miss Pride, due to the war, Backland's psychology alchemists suffered great losses. We have lost contact with many of the members and will give a specific list in the future. You will be in charge of confirming the whereabouts of the members and organize them again. In this process, I suggest that you don't use the real image, name of the furnish the task. Create a virtual identity to compete them. Hambith Rambus didn't do well in this aspect. I think he's a little too proud." Audrey nodded slightly and agreed. Derlu retracted his gaze and said, "The second thing to discuss today is the whereabouts of the Mind Dragon in East Chester County in Lowen Kingdom. The dragon worshipping customs in the Hartlark village haven't been weakened in the past 2 years. I suspect that the Mind Dragon is still influencing in some way. Perhaps we can use it to find its whereabouts. Who is willing to handle this matter?" After raising the question, he recalled the newly joined Miss Pride and Mr. Wraith didn't have enough knowledge in the corresponding situation. He simply explained the explorers to the psychology alchemist had previously done, as well as the problems that his entire archaeological team members encountered. Audrey had actually participated in some matters in the early stages. Now that she had a suitable reason to intervene, she couldn't help but feel that her heart palpitated. It wasn't that she wasn't really wanted to hunt the Mind Dragon, or rather she wanted to communicate with it and to grasp more knowledge and secrets in the mind domain. However, she wasn't in a hurry to raise her hand. As a chancellor participating in the council for the first time, she would rather miss an opportunity than be eager to showcase herself. "This is Lowen matter. It's not suitable for us to interfere," Mr. Lust surveyed the area and said, "unless Miss Pride and Mr. Gluttony don't have time for it." Audrey waited for a few more seconds. Seeing that the Gluttony didn't have anything to say, she looked at Derlu and said, "Fuck. I will try to investigate, but I need more detailed information." "Good news, this is the last chapter anyway, so whatever." Oh, I guess I did say chapter 20. Okay. Seeing that Audrey was willing to attempt the investigation mission, Derlu nodded and said, I'll give you the detailed information later. But I have to warn you that this matter is rather dangerous. You must not careless. Upon seeing that, Derlu paused for a moment and said, if you encounter an accident and you can solve it by relying on yourself, you can try to say a name. This will bring your salvation. What name? Audrey asked as she guessed in her mind. Derlu's expression immediately turned solemn. It comes from the Holy Bible of the Third Epoch's creator, the Holy Bibli. It involves the highest mystery of the mind domain and its close relationship with something. Holy shit. I just ran out of water too. Close relationship with something of the psychology alchemist. It's Adam. Audrey didn't find it surprising at all, but she showed her puzzlement on the surface as though she didn't know what the name meant. Derlu didn't explain it and said, as a chancellor, you should be in charge of a grade 1 sealed artifact. However, you and Wrath have just joined the ranks, so there must be an observation period first. Besides, the former committee member of the Backland region, Haven Rambus, has lost a rather important sealed artifact. We are considering whether we should charge the usage method of the sealed artifact to allow only via an application. In other words, all the sealed artifacts will be kept in the Mind City, and you usually won't hold on to them, and you can only use them temporarily after the application particular incident. The woman in charge of the FASEC, Captain Millam, immediately shook her head. This is a very serious flaw in the method. That is that we are unable to deal with sudden accidents, but be it enemies or monsters, once we encounter them, we will not have any time to apply and retrieve the sealed artifacts. I believe that the current method is good enough. Everyone wields a grade 1 sealed artifact to deal with an accident. When there's a need, we can apply for other items. Derlu laughed and said, this is indeed better than the past, but now we don't have to worry. As long as you have a chance to resist the accidents, then you can directly enter the Mind City and avoid the enemy and obtain the item. There's no chance that I said that. Reciting the name Adam will do. You said Adam twice. The entity is probably already watching. No, he might even be watching from the very beginning. Audrey's heart almost beat faster when she heard that. Then, how do we enter without your invitation? Mr. Envy asked as he nodded. Derlu pointed and set his face. From the Chancellor meeting forth, you can take the persona mask out from the city, no matter where you are, as long as there are at least 2 humans around you, yes, other than you will be able to wear the corresponding persona mask and enter the city. And the 7 masks are illusory, and they're closely connected with what you know. And there's no need for you to store them into a special way. With just a thought, you will be able to take them out of the sea of collective subconscious. At that moment, the man who was wearing the gluttony mask and exuded the feeling that he was lost in indulgence thought for a while and said, will bringing the persona mask out of the city affect our mental state and true personality? There will be some effects that need attention, but you believe that you will exert the mind domain. You have the ability to resolve problems in the aspects, Derlu said frankly. Audrey was a little worried with the 7 personas masking as something to do with Adam, but she didn't dare think about it in her mind city. She forced herself to rein in her thoughts and replied what Derlu had said before. I can accept the 2 safekeeping methods of the grade 1 sealed artifact. I'll patiently wait for the probation period to end. Miss, you aren't proud. Mrs. Thoth, who looked like she was sleeping, commented on the smile. After discussing with the Mind Dragon in the Eastchester County, the other 5 chancellors began introducing things that were worth paying attention to in their respective areas in an exchange of information. During this process, Mr. Gluttony, who seemed to be capable of eating an entire cow at any moment, and wore 10 rings, said the constant region hasn't been peaceful recently. There have been many miracles happening one after another. First, Constant City was rebuilt overnight. Second, Bellantine City citizens collectively lost their memories of the certain period of time. Third, a powerful archmage who grants the wishes of others for pleasantries has been wandering the east shore of Mid-Seashire. He's called Merlin Hermes. Relate to this, and there's an unknown and fully automatic wishing machine. Other than that, I didn't notice anything strange. Many rats, roaches, cockroaches, and crows in Constant City have lost their souls days after the city was miraculously restored. Why are you able to sense this problem? Mr. Luss looked at Gluttony from the bottom. Gluttony gulped and said, I've been researching the mind problems of ordinary creatures recently. Rats, cockroaches, and crows are my experimental subjects. The chancellors immediately started discussing the direction of the research before meeting official ended and the 3rd stage. Their academic exchange enriched Audrey's knowledge quite a bit. She listened very seriously and would occasionally share her thoughts and insights. All right, this conference will end here. After a while, DeLu clapped his hands. Audrey subconsciously wanted to stand up and lead the other chancellors into a bow, bidding farewell. However, she quickly came to her senses and continued sitting there. Being in a preliminary person to stand up, before leaving, she asked cautiously, "Mr. President, does this city have a name?" "Yes." "Oh, shit." "Yes." DeLu laughed. "The Garden of Eden." Garden of Eden? Audrey saw that the other chancellors were walking towards the door and asked thoughtfully, "There are many cathedrals here. They should represent a faith. I wonder which existence the residents here believe in." Dulu nodded and replied solemnly, "The omnipotent and omniscient reader." Garden of Eden, the omnipotent and omniscient creator. Not reader. Creator. I don't know where the fuck I got reader from. Omniscient creator. "If this wasn't created by Adam, I'll write my name backwards above the grey fog inside the palace." Klein looked at the crimson star representing Miss Justice and silently muttered to himself. In addition to recite Adam, when faced with the dangers, the respond would indicate a problem without concealing anything. Ever since Miss Justice entered the Garden of Eden, the true vision provided by Stepford Castle has been suppressed. Klein could only use Audrey's point of view to observe the surroundings, just like how Queen Mystic Bernadette fixed viewpoint back on the primitive island to a certain extent. This also showed the status of the Mind City Garden of Eden. Klein gently tapped the edge of the long molten table and conjured a pen and paper to write his thoughts. This wasn't something he could analyze based on his own thinking. Instead, he faced an existence like Adam. He needed to repeatedly ponder and analyze the details. Thus, the words that formed on the paper helped him read it back and forth so to notice anything that make up a detail. Basic premise. Adam has already advanced to sequence 0, using the full-scale war from before. By becoming a true god, he can now known as a visionary. Miss Justice happened to become a sequence 4 manipulator after Heaven Rammus's death. She may be able to convince others, but she can't convince Adam. What does Adam want? Setting up a sequence 4 saint doesn't match his identity as a visionary unless he has other ploys up his sleeve. The real target is the Mind Dragon. Or is it me who is backing Miss Justice? Care and vigilance must be enhanced on this matter. We must not be careless. In the Garden of Eden, the cathedral of the psychology alchemist chancellors were using is similar to Adam's corpse cathedral. However, it's only a little similar. The stone columns on the exterior are inlaid with several skulls, there's no corresponding layout inside, and the color is dark black and very gloomy. What does this mean? What is the grayish-white dragon coiling around the huge cross symbol? The first step in resurrecting the creator has been successful? Adam is already a visionary, and if his father or the original creator returns, he would be the first one to be unlucky. He is willing to sacrifice himself? This is the meaning of being zealous? The rabbit is suspected to be Hermes. However, as an angel of the spectator pathway, does it make sense for him to not be able to remove Miss Messenger's transformation curse after a long, especially since he has a visionary who can provide help? Did Hermes do it on purpose? Yes, the president of the psychology alchemist Lu mentioned that the spectator death is only represented at the end of one's identity. He can still participate in other theological plays and other aspects of another identity. By confirming them together, does this mean that one of the spectator pathways reaches sequence 3 or sequence 2? They can separate the identities once held and make them become living people. And even if the identities were to die, it would lead to the deaths of the real bound bodies. It doesn't look like a preamble to becoming a visionary. The rabbit that Hermes turned into after being cursed was separated by an identity, which later directly participated in the psychology alchemist. What does he want to do? Back then, when the Twilight Hermit Order communicated, he was sitting beside the Emperor. After Klein was done writing, he put down the fountain pen and carefully read the contents a few times. His heart clouded with mysterious and puzzlement. In the end, he could only decide, continuing observing, be vigilant. And at that moment, Audrey had already taken the carriage she used exiting the Garden of Eden and returned to the park in Empress Borough with the man-made lake. She wasn't in a rush to pray to Mr. Fool, hoping that there would be a better way to seal the pride mask. She returned to her luxurious villa, and though nothing had happened. Okay, I'll do this chapter, and then we're done. Susie was sitting by the door, waiting for Audrey to return. At that moment, the golden retriever immediately went up to her as soon as she saw her approach. She even gave a rather talented showcase of her acting by barking and wagging her tail. She didn't ask on the spot, and said she kept accompanying Audrey back to her bedroom before asking in concern. "Is it over?" Audrey tersely acknowledged, indicating that there was no problem. "Is there anything I can help you with?" Susie pressed. "Not yet." Audrey shook her head slightly. Due to Susie's concern, she instinctively recalled the previous experience, but to her surprise, she realized that she could recall the image and name of the psychology alchemist president. To recall even information that she... Oh my god. I think I'm getting sick again. She instinctively recalled her previous experiences, but to her surprise, she realized that she couldn't recall the image and name of the psychology alchemist president. To recall the information that she had learned from the world Gammon Sparrow, she had focused quite a bit. Oh my god, I miss him so much. To be frank, in front of the Beyonders below the demigod level, she could do similar feats to the manipulator. However, to influence the saint of the mind domain and make it impossible for them to sense it was almost impossible unless the other party was hypnotized, unconscious, or enslaved. The gentleman's level is probably higher than I expected. Audrey controlled her emotions and calmly made a certain judgment. She gave Susie a look and got the golden retriever to stand guard outside the door. In her mind, she outlined the character mask and represented pride. Just as she was thinking it, she felt a slight fluctuation in the sea of collective subconscious around her. With just the thought, Audrey reached out her left hand and grabbed it. She looked at the abnormally cold, illusory, grayish-white mask. As long as I seriously don't think about it, this pride mask come to my side? Or should I say that it's already existed in my subconscious and been following me? As Audrey carefully examined her mind island, she signaled that although this was a pride mask, signaled that with a thought that made the pride mask vanish. The ice-cold, illusory, grayish-white mask quickly turned transparent and melted in the surrounding sea of collective subconscious. Audrey still couldn't determine where the pride mask had gone. Why did it appear in such a timely manner each time? This has made her increasingly wary. She decided to pray to Mr. Fool and make the wish of sealing the mask. Just as she was thinking of doing more than a few experiments to obtain more knowledge from pride, she saw the sea of collective subconscious begin to resonate without using her manipulative beyond her powers. A beam of light came from afar as it grew larger and more obvious. Finally, it turned around to an illusory letter. This letter stopped in front of Audrey's mind island as though she was searching for a path to complete the delivery. Audrey naturally wouldn't let any foreign objects enter her mind world. She hurriedly reached out her left hand and touched the illusory letter. Seeing that her fingers were about to touch the surface of the letter, Audrey suddenly stopped. Her experience as an intelligence told her at the same time, don't touch anything in the mysterious world rashly. This was especially so for the mind domain. Otherwise, it would lead to corruption and produce mental problems. With this in mind, Audrey produced a virtual persona and put on the long, black, veiled glove, hand of horror. After making the necessary preparations, she reached out and grabbed the illusory letter and watched it peel away its outer letter and flip open one page at a time. This was all the information related to the Mind Dragon of Eastchester County. To use the Sea God collective subconscious and transmit information, the higher up levels of the spectator pathway are truly amazing. As a manipulator, Audrey had been trying her best to maintain her spiritual yearning towards the mysticism world. It was pure and innocent pursuit of dreams and magical. This was the one way to prevent herself from losing herself in the manipulating experience of things and not be assimilated by the sea of collective subconsciousness. After flipping through all the information, Audrey let out an illusory letter melted into the sea of collective subconscious. She was in no hurry to pray to Mr. Fool. According to her previous arrangement, she went out to be busy over other things. At dusk, before the banquet at home began, she found some time and quickly made a prayer in her bedroom and made a wish. In the next second, Audrey saw the grayish-white pride appear in front of the sea of collective subconscious in front of her. The illusion began feeling slowly vanished, and a tiny amount of metallic luster flashed. For some reason, this person's mind had a certain subsidiary feeling, as though it was bordering between illusory and realism. This meant that it was isolated from Audrey's mind island and its physical psyche. Of course, it also lost the ability to return to sea of the collective subconscious. Audrey held pride in an attempt to remove lie and had turned into an emerald necklace overlapping the two. Together, just as she had expected, the half-illusory, half-real pride embedded itself into lie, turning into a blob of patterns that roughly looked like a human face. In the future, I'll use this method to carry it with me. I won't allow the person's mask to contact with my mind-body or until I need to use it. Audrey's mind raced as she sincerely thanked Mr. Fool. She then left out the banquet hall, although the way she met her father, Earl Hall. Good news! Earl Hall laughed. Audrey didn't hide her surprise. Alfred's coming back? This was her older brother. You actually guessed it. Earl Hall said in surprise. In the next half year, he will return to Backland as a general. Half a year? Susie was already a dreamwalker. Audrey thought for a moment before asking, Father, when are we returning to Eastchester County? As the war had just ended and there were many things in the kingdom that need to be done, the nobles didn't return to their respective fiefs during New Year's. They remained in Backland all this time, and it was already the end of February. Earl Hall nodded and said, About April. In the ancient palace above the fog, Mind Mall, be careful of viruses. Don't click on them without thought. As Klein sighed, he threw the curtain that represented the Attendant of Mysteries beyond a characteristic back into the junk pile, allowing it to cover over all the other items. He had just fulfilled Miss Justice's wish using the grafting ability he named. He connected the illusory concepts of the persona mask and ordinary mental mask, and he gave the worms a spirit who were duty at Sephra Castle in order to recharge the powers from time to time, prolonging the grafting effects. From this description of Miss Gluttony and the psychology alchemist, Sir Turtle seemed to have found the constant city. I have yet to be even more careful. Klein tapped the edge of the long molten table with his finger, causing worms a spirit to appear from his body. His figure vanished from Sephra Castle. Winter County, Amantha Mountain Range, Cathedral of Serenity. Leonard obtained a document from the Pope. This was the first thing he was responsible for after becoming a high-ranking deacon. After returning to his room, Leonard leisurely leaned back and placed on his feet at the desk. Then he opened this document in his hand and began reading. A wandering magician, Merlin Hermes, grants wishes of other pleasures. The newly rebuilt Constant City fully automatic wishing machine. Sequence 4 of the Seer Pathway is Bizarro Sorcerer. Sequence 3 is Scholar of Yore. Sequence 2 is Miracle Invoker. Leonard read until he suddenly fell silent. After a few seconds, he suppressed his voice and asked, Old man, how many angels of the Seer Pathway are active across the land? Palazora scoffed. This isn't acting. There should only be one Miracle Invoker who still needs to act. You should know who I'm talking about. Leonard looked at the information in his hand and mumbled. He's having a good time. He had already decided that the main purpose of this mission was to act as a night watcher and to digest his potion. He could also travel in passing. As for handling the matter, what mattered was to find a reasonable explanation. After flipping through the thick documents in boredom, Leonard retracted his feet and stood up. He was going to retrieve a grade 1 sealed artifact that a high-ranking deacon like him could own. To other saints of the Church of Evernight, this was quite a headache. This was because the negative effects of the sealed artifact weren't easily endured. It was even more so when one needed to carry them for a long period of time. However, if one chose a holy artifact that was more compatible with him, there would be a problem for powers overlapping. As for Leonard, he didn't need to worry about the problem. As long as the sealed artifact was interested in having a living characteristic, he could get the old man's help. By parasitizing it with a worm of time, it specifically reduced the negative effects of the sealed artifact, making it obedient as the word of the sea. Therefore, the main thing to choose is its power. Leonard whistled and walked down the room. Monday afternoon, in the ancient palace above the grey fog, dark red beams shot out, materializing into different figures. Derek hadn't needed to count his heartbeat for a long time. All he needed to do was take a look at the wall clock and calculate the difference with Backland to knowing how much longer before the Tarot Club gathering happened. At that moment, he stood up to Miss Justice and the other members of the Tarot Club. He bowed to the end of the long bronze table and said, Good afternoon, Mr. Fool. After taking their seats and praying their respects, Emlyn glanced left and right and said, I want to know if there's something special about the Planter and Moon pathway compared to the other pathways. After raising the question, he didn't hide it and instead asked frankly. I recently learned that the internal system of the Church of Earth is different from other normal systems. It's split into 2 categories, favored and blessed. After everyone had finished his simple description, Alger, Catlia, Leonard, and company looked at each other, unable to provide a reasonable explanation. Of course, every member present, including Derek, could tell that the internal system of the Church of Evernight was abnormal. At this moment, they heard a soft sigh. The sigh seemed to come from an era more ancient than ancient. It came from Mr. Fool, who sat at the end of the long, molted table. Okay! We're all done. Thank you guys so much for joining. I assume the next chunk of chapters are going to get a little juicy because we have a tarot club. We have more to do with the Moon and Planter pathway, which I always love. Love. But yeah, I think we're almost done. Let me look really quick. Yeah, we're 61% of the way done. So I think there's only, with the chapter, sections, I think we only have 2 streams left. Because there's only, unless there's more that I don't know about. I'm pretty sure the last two is next stream's gonna be 15 chapters tomorrow, and then I won't stream the ending until next Thursday, which will be the last 18 chapters. I might split it into two. I'm not totally sure. It just depends on like how much time I have. But most likely I'll be doing the ending next Thursday. Just to like how my whole thing works. But that's all I got. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. I will see you guys next time. And I won't be as distracted next time. But yeah, that's all I got. Okay. Bye.